Hi, welcome to episode 11 of Red River Podcast. Back in the lovely digs of Mr. Parker. What's going on?
I'm back alive, man.
Back alive.
Fucking fucked up 2 weeks.
Langan staring at me. I like
Am
it.
I here?
Yeah, you got your Possess shirt on.
I do.
Is that Larry Lalonde's band?
It was.
It was, right?
Yeah.
Fuck that guy, right?
Kind of.
Yeah.
You know why? Because they're like a very important band. They did the black metal, death metal thing early on. They only made 3 records. The singer got like jacked and got paralyzed. He's in a wheelchair. He's still playing Possessed gigs. They just got signed to do an album with Nuclear Assault.
Nuclear Blast.
Nuclear Blast.
Who signed? They're signing everyone.
Yeah. Which is good because, like, they were a good band. They were really good. But Larry Lalonde thinks it's beneath him. It's like, come on, throw some shows. Play some shows with this guy. He's in a goddamn wheelchair.
Les Claypool won't care.
Yeah.
You know?
You know?
So.
But, yes.
All right. And then to my right, the lead singer of all lead singers, the KRS-One of Long Island Hardcore. I'll tell you this before we start. When my band used to play shows, I went like 2 or 3 years where I had nothing to say in between songs, and I would just be like, sorry, George Reynolds isn't here to talk to you guys.
So you blamed me?
I'm just saying I had nothing to say. I've had no frontman personality. So, but anyway, welcome, George.
It's good to be here.
Yeah.
It's weird that you say the lead singer of all lead singers, and I'm not actually a lead singer.
No, you're a lead singer
at the moment.
You're a lead singer. Oh no, yeah, actually, I think I went to your last show. St. Vitus?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the last time I played.
Was that
anything.
scripted?
No.
No, it just happened to be the last time.
Well, I stopped playing music.
Okay.
And then there
How
was
long
the
ago was
reunion
this?
shows. There was a couple of Mind Never Matter reunion shows to raise money for Rob
McAllister.
Right. So, that was just, I had stopped playing completely and then did a couple of reunion shows to raise money. So it would be the last time.
How do
that I
those
played.
reunions start happening like this one?
Well, we get asked pretty decently. I mean, and it's always sort of a thing that a couple people in the band want to do it and a couple people don't.
Always.
And we all trade roles. And it really does seem like overall we have to, be into it. And, the time and place is everything. And it always feels like, all right, well, no more. And then something good comes up or something worthwhile, like a benefit, and then we'll just decide to do it.
And that's it. Like the text message thread is just okay.
The text message thread is awful. It's awful. Text message threads are awful in general.
In general, yeah.
But then the confusion of, you think it would be okay now, but there's still people who maybe have older cell phones or something like that, and it just doesn't come through, and then you're reading old messages or someone's sleeping, and it's a nightmare, and you want to be like, well, let's just get on the phone like we used to, but, and then there's jokes, and somehow it all gets hashed out.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I remember our friend Alex and I, we drove in, and that was it, right? Like, because you wanted to kind of let loose a little.
Yeah.
So I drove on the way back, but it was like me, you, Alex Amarudin. A shout out again.
I think him and Metallica get fucking spoken of every episode.
and he won't come on.
He won't come on.
I got nothing to talk about. Everyone's got better stories than me.
No, you got to figure out what the key is.
Dude, the
key
guy
is,
played on the fucking Red demo. That's all that I gotta say.
Just let him know.
Right?
Let him know.
To get him here, the key would be that he's now married with a child.
Yeah.
So this was the way you can get him. Just say, I got some booze. And
got
I
some
got
toys
you a
for the
ride.
toys for the kids down here.
I think that's what it is.
Come into the man cave.
Yeah.
Of,
I think a ride would be good because then he could kind of let loose and
Right.
stuff. So we'll work on
set up
it.
the
We'll
Uber.
send the car service.
Said the Uber.
send an Uber.
Send the Uber. But so we drove into Brooklyn to St. Vitus, and then from there you guys practiced before the show. That's why we
Yeah.
went in early. How funny is that? Was that the first practice?
No, we did sort of like half practices here and there, but it was, Artie owns St. Vitus, is part owner, so we actually practiced at, So it was good.
Super cool. Like, right, to have like that band member like, oh yeah, you own this place, so we could come here early. Right. We could set up. No one's ever, no one's gonna think anything of it. So.
And when you guys hit the stage, it's like no time passed, or is it kind of?
I'm like, I always want to rehearse.
Right.
I just feel like I need it. You know what I mean? But there is a thing that there is muscle memory that you don't think. When you're driving in your car and you're trying to remember lyrics or you're trying to remember how songs goes, you screw it up. But when you're all together and you screw it up, you go into that muscle memory of how you fixed the screw up many years ago, and it's fine. So,
Gotcha.
There is a muscle memory to it. But I don't like to go up there and just phone it in. I want to like practice and be rehearsed, and people be like, wow, they were really tight, instead of just falling apart in front of everyone,
And then from there, I know that you guys, you like involved like the 4 other singers from like other bands. It was like Tim from VOD, Ron Grimaldi, Jaw
from Berserkers.
Who the hell else?
That was it.
And there was one more. I don't remember.
There wasn't one more. It was Jaw, Tim,
and
Ron, me, Artie Shepherd.
Oh, okay. Whatever. And they did LSS by Neglect.
Nice.
Yeah. And man, the place was feeling that one, definitely. And for someone who's not really a hardcore person like myself, like, everyone remembers LSS.
Yeah.
It should have been like the hit single, for lack of a better word. But now that was a text message thread and a half. I was trying to do it like, because we all had to figure out what part to do. You know what I mean? I didn't want people just, falling all over each other. I literally wanted it to be like featuring this guy, then the next guy, and the next guy, because it was like a thing. It was
Tommy Corrigan.
Oh, Tommy Corrigan. How the hell could I forget that? I was sure I was right.
Yeah.
And I was totally wrong. But so we worked it out, and I wanted it to be like, then you come up, then you come up, then you come up. So you could see a different singer every time.
Yeah.
And the hardest one was to get Jaw, because Jaw was like, I don't sing, I don't do that. I think this might have been the 3rd time I asked him to do this, and finally I was like, I will give you the easiest part. I had the least lyrics, and just come out and do it. And he nailed it.
Yeah,
it
everyone nailed it. It was fucking very special to see.
Yeah, it was fun.
I loved it. Like, it was just one of those moments where I'm like, man, I was here. So I like that. And what I noticed in between songs, like you always do, I think you did like kind of like I want to say like a spoken word piece in the middle, maybe like about
I did
American something.
I did what I did on the Ancient Tongue record.
Okay.
I just changed it up like a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of like an intro to one of their songs that's like spoken word.
Yeah.
Ish, like rhymey ish. Not rap though.
No. It was it did have like a bit of,
Deaf poetry.
Yeah, like it was just, it had a swagger to it, you know, so it wasn't like straight up like, reading like a cue card and stuff like that.
Right.
And I think you were always really good at that. It was like supernatural and well, not supernatural, but supernatural.
So you're saying I have superpowers? Because that's what I heard. I don't know what you said, but that's what I heard.
Guys, like supernatural. So I know that maybe it's something you'd like to explore in the future, or something like that.
Yeah, I've always wanted to do something where it's just me, where it's like stories, and some that are funny, some that are a little bit more interesting. And cool. I don't rap. I'm not Saul Williams. It wouldn't be like that, but like what you heard was rhythmic.
Absolutely.
It wasn't like me just reading like da 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 da, like some type of poetry. It's not like an art project you wouldn't get.
And it had like a few refrain lines, like where you would repeat certain things, so it was almost like you
had a hook.
Yeah, it had a hook. It had a verbal hook. So,
but I love Henry Rollins, the way he does it, and one of my best friends is Michael Clarity, and I'm just
a master
in awe of how he does that with no music. Some stories, some some things involved, and it's funny because I texted you the other night about it.
I texted him. Well, Clarity texted me too, like when we were all
interesting.
Like the day after we spoke. So
yeah, that's interesting, because it's something where like I've always been like someone who likes to be accountable to someone. Like if I'm in a band with you, I don't want to show up late to practice. I don't want to let anyone down. But when you're doing it on your own, you could just be like, I'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I have tons of stuff written. I have things like voice recorder. So I wrote you because I was like, I need to be accountable for someone to be like, well, when can we get together?
Yeah.
So I was like, let me just hash some stuff out with you,
No, that would be great.
This way, when you have to answer to somebody, if you're that type of person, which I am, then you'll be like, I got to get that done before Wednesday. Yeah. And it moves your project along. You don't realize how much 5 guys in a band, some of them aren't like that in a band usually, but there'll be a few enough that will say, all right, we got to get this done. And when you don't have it, you're like, well, I'll be accountable to the other things in my life,
Absolutely.
Work or whatever, and I'm not going to get that art project done. And this is like the art project I've been kicking around. It's like, maybe I need someone else just to say, I'll see you Friday. You're going to show me some of the stuff you wrote.
Yeah.
And then
I'll see you tomorrow. Actually, I'm free. So
slow down, Sam. You're like a girlfriend already. Jesus. Get off my back.
Coincidentally, I think you and I both heard the Joe Rogan episode with Everlast.
Yes.
He was just on, and he did mention something like that, where he was working on his solo record that never came out. He never finished it, and he said it was just different. He was just like, it was all up to him, and his co-writer wasn't around, and it was just some dude in the studio. And he said that once he got together with War Porn Industries, which is like the hip hop group that he started, he said it was like a communal thing, and like it was like a group effort, and it kind of like they all kind of did it together, because he said he just wasn't getting anywhere by himself, So definitely like that, and especially for something like a 30-40 minute piece of spoken word, whether it be stories, like that's pretty daunting. Like that's,
if you speak for 5 minutes, it's tough. I think
we're only up to like 7 minutes.
Or just by yourself, if you have to give a speech, you just have to, do something where you write it beginning, middle, end, and try and keep people's attention. It's tough, but there's something about it I've always been attracted to, like being a front man and talking in between songs and admiring, great speakers. That was part of my like interest in a band. Wasn't like, oh, I have these, these lungs. I would just love to sing. I just need to be singing. It was just never like that for me. A lot of it was, in my head of like working things out and talking in between songs and lyrics and words more than it was like, oh, that melody. It just,
Yeah, no, and you in between songs, but I've never seen pretty much anyone like you. Maybe Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age.
Oh yeah,
he's got some good banter with the crowd. So, but yeah, so I would definitely love to sit down and listen to that, because I've never done that before. So it'd be cool. Like, I don't know, you give me what you have, and I think it would be interesting. I'm into trying like anything different. I think I spoke to you about like a weird random podcast offer that came down to me, like with Christian.
You did. Oh yes, you did.
Yeah. So he, I'm down to try anything. So.
Yeah.
Well, create, as far as like creative stuff goes, nothing too crazy. I'm not talking about like horse dick and shit like that. I'm talking,
but if that's the line,
if you're kind of revealing yourself,
if that's what you're into, by all means. I'm just saying, like,
Yeah, we don't want to turn away that possible audience.
There's an audience that's
10 bestiality videos. Just like, fuck this show. I'm never gonna listen to it anymore.
Protesting.
But anytime I could be in 10 bands and somebody could ask me to join an 11th band that sounds interesting, and in my head I'm just thinking like, maybe I do have extra time, because like when it comes to being creative, since I don't do it for a living, any time that I get the opportunity to do anything like that, I pretty much jump on it. So
but that's amazing to me. Like I've always known guys who can do like 3 bands. I think I overlapped one band once, like for like a couple months, Revenge of the Dragon and White Top Crash, and I was like, this is exhausting.
Yeah.
And I think it's like you're like a natural born musician, and some of that like just has to be, those needs have to be met. And for me, I feel like it was acquired ability, and it takes a lot for me to do what I do. Like I work at this, so I have to like narrow it down and edit constantly. And then I love the work part of it, but it feels more exhausting. And like a guy like Mike Patton, I'm like,
It's like
that sounds like a nightmare to be in that many bands. But for him, that's the way it is, and there's never enough.
Never
And
enough.
that like fascinates me, the difference in musicians. I think most musicians I know are more like you, just need to do several projects.
yeah,
If they could.
I just do. I mean, just because I don't know, just the personality that I have. 3 donuts are better than one.
Plus, you know a wide range of music, so it kind of satiates.
But
those
everything I
different
play sounds the same.
aspects.
Everyone's like, it sounds like whatever you wrote. I'm like, yeah, I guess so. But so you're okay, kind of like, not saying that you're never gonna play again, but like this new kind of like part of your life where it's like you're working, you're doing your thing, and from there you're just focused on this like piece of whatever you want to call it, one man.
Can we call it a one-man show?
I think so.
I think that sets the bar rather high. Like I would have props, and like, you know what I mean?
Carrot
Like
top.
so, spoken word sounds super
Spoken
corny.
word.
Yeah,
There
that's
you
the
go.
way to go.
That's
Doesn't
the
it
way
sound
to go.
corny if like, oh, he does spoken word? If you say poetry, that sounds a little
Yeah.
weak.
Yeah,
So
Spoken
maybe I'll
word
make
kind of covers the whole gambit.
it does.
Could
Because,
be some humor, could be story. It's wide open.
well, because you mentioned the man, Henry Rollins, and I remember when I first listened to his stuff, it was like some of it was funny,
right.
some of it was like, like biographical maybe.
He shifts gears really well.
Yeah,
Very well,
yeah.
and he's like so worldly and traveled and does so much shit that he has a lot of stuff to talk about. So I like that.
Yeah, I mean I'm okay with it because it almost fills the need that filled with music. Music, like I said, I wasn't like, man, you wouldn't see me as a little kid and be like, oh, this kid's gonna be, in a band. He's just got to play. It wasn't like that. It was more like just, figuring out how to do it. I would be, talking with someone. They'd say, oh, you should see this documentary. And I would get the documentary and be like, as I'm watching the documentary, it's like, oh, I got to use those words. And it was almost a little bit more heady than it was like trying to write like the best melody. It just, it moved me forward creatively because of all this outside stuff, going to a show, having conversations in the parking lot. And then, what I do today is more, I would listen to podcasts and audiobooks more than I actually listen to records.
Mm-hmm.
So it serves that need that I have, that I don't know that most musicians that I know have that same need,
If I ruled the world, what does that mean to you?
It's a good title.
Really?
Well, that's the same thing. I mean, we've been talking for a while.
We've been talking about it for a while, yeah.
I started a podcast and it almost falls into the same exact category, accountability. There's no one there being like, hey, let's do this podcast. So I, started it with a friend of mine, Kelly. And then, she was doing her own. And then we were starting to do this together. And I just had this thing inside me that was like, you just want to do it by yourself. And I think if you're in a band, if you make music, if you're an artist, when you're like, something's nagging you. And if you don't scratch that itch, it's just going to bother you forever. And when to let that go and when to do it. So it was like, I explained to her, and I always hope she understands it, because it wasn't like, anything bad on her. It was like, it's not you, it's me. I just want to kind of do it on my own. So then I decided to do it on my own. And then again, you're by yourself and you don't have that accountability to somebody else, and
No deadline.
So every week I'm like, I did one interview with Daryl from Glassjaw, which is like a pain in the ass to get him to come to my house. And we did a great interview. And then it's like, I have it. I got to edit it and I got to start this thing. And I almost feel like it's the same thing. Like I want to have someone involved with my podcast who might not necessarily want to be on the mic forming questions and all of that, but want to help me like move it along. And it's amazing that I've discovered this about myself, that this is an accountability thing I didn't even realize I had in a band, with everybody there being like, I'm not going to be the guy who shows up late. I'm not going to be the guy who didn't finish the song.
yeah.
I'm not going to be that guy. Instinctively, and I do it with work and I do it with other parts of my life. And then when it comes to my own personal art, I'm like, there's always tomorrow.
There's always tomorrow.
So that other person, even in the podcast, I'm like, maybe I need a partner that's like not interested in like being on the mic, but wants to like help me shape things and this and that.
Yeah, you need the tech guy, definitely. And
Right.
I think 2 works better than 1 sometimes. I mean, there was like the Mark Marons of the world, and
Right.
you know, but he, you know, still it's just his one view, and but he's a seasoned vet, that
He's a
motherfucker.
stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
like
Right.
I mean that field too. Just from going what you're talking about spoken word. I mean, I've always admired that field for how hard it would be to stand up for like an hour and tell things that you think is funny,
Yeah.
to get people to laugh, and to
Oh.
have this material. It's really daunting.
It's
you
the
know?
hardest thing.
You know,
Well,
That's it out of all of them. Is
like George
comedy.
Carlin and these people that do
George
it
Carlin
real well. Like
amazing.
it's unbelievable.
George told me to watch this thing on Netflix that I watched when we were talking. Maybe it was like 2 days ago. 3 Mics with Neil Brennan.
I saw you post about that.
Holy
I
shit.
had never heard of that one.
Super, like Neil Brennan co-wrote the Chappelle Show,
Yeah.
Half Baked, basically anything Dave Chappelle does.
Okay.
So that's like they're the 1 and 2. So he has like an hour-long special on Netflix. It's called 3 Mics, and in the beginning you see the way they set it up. So it's like one says one-liners. The middle one was like emotional.
One was comedy, like straight up jokes.
Yeah,
One
stand-up.
was, I thought the middle, I think it was the one liner, or however they set it up.
Yeah,
one was
however they set it up.
one liners, one was emotion, like stories,
Yeah.
and then the other one was
Stand-up.
jokes,
Yeah.
stand up. Yeah,
So and so the way it played out was I don't know how how he taped it, but the way it was edited together, they would like do the one part, then the second part, and then the third part, and then again, and they would just like rotate it. But the stuff that I found super effective was the emotional part, because he was super honest about being depressed,
right.
and how he needed to chase certain things, and basically his fucking faults, his abusive father, that relationship. Wow. Like I'm watching, I saw it twice because I watched it again last
And
night.
so
'cause-
each mic, like if he went to this other mic that said one-liners, that's the kind of jokes he would tell him. I get it.
Yeah,
Wow, that's
Yeah.
brilliant concept, man.
it's. And I got mad because I was like, "Yo, that was my," and like
I
you
wish
hear
it-
a song or a title over there, and you're like, "Oh, dude, I thought of that, man," and I was like, not exactly like that, but it bothered me. I was
Right.
like, I was thinking about something like that, maybe different mics or something like that, but now that idea is gone.
It's good, man. It's on Netflix, and it's only an hour long, and it's you could tell that this guy is a really good writer, and I guess he just hid behind Chappelle for a while because Chappelle's
Yeah.
the the stand-up, so very, very good.
And he comes out and he has cue cards. So he's standing in, you start your special. He has
With
cue
the
cards
one-liners,
and he's
yeah.
just reading it and the one-liners. And you're like, that's kind of weird, right? And then I was watching an interview with him and he's like, I did the cue cards because I needed to differentiate the mics. And I'm like, that's a master.
Yeah.
That's someone who has attention to detail on every word, every movement. And how do you figure out, like, I'm going to go to say something emotional right now. Now there's no payoff. It's not funny anymore.
Right.
You must either do that 10,000 times to get that fluidity and have people be okay with, like, the emotional part now and him to admit about his, hiding behind Dave Chappelle, which is like, it sounds like a name drop, but in the end, it's so vulnerable.
Absolutely.
And, and the way he just moved back and forth between those microphones, you're like, this is a masterpiece because,
Yeah.
and you question it. Like I question the cue cards. And then you realize like, yeah, he's differentiating and putting it in your head because I knew when he was done, just move to the next thing. Like that's amazing to me.
yeah, you got to check it out. So,
Yeah, definitely.
speaking of Daryl Glassjaw, what were you going to say?
I remember, I think it was the Silent Majority when they did I think it was that last show actually, and Daryl said, none of you motherfuckers would be there if it wasn't for Mind Over Matter and VOD.
Nice.
And could we get into that?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
He's been super supportive.
Yeah.
And that's incredible to hear because when Glassjaw first started, I didn't pay attention to them. I didn't. They were like around, and we played with them, and I was like supportive of them, but I didn't really get into them until that first Roadrunner record. Even Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, I knew, but I didn't really.
Me too.
And then I was like, became a fan of theirs, you know, like a fan of him, a fan of the way he writes. And so it you know, it's interesting to turn it around and be like, no, I'm influenced by you. And I can appreciate Daryl, because Daryl tries to do all these different things and he gets shit for it. You know, he could stick with one thing if he wants. He could do Glassjaw forever. But he's all over the map, and some things do better than others. But he's one of those guys, like, I look at, I'm like, you're an artist to the bone. I'm like, do you even warm up? Like, I spend, I'll play for 30 minutes and I'll warm up for 40 minutes just to get my voice good enough to, like, get through the set. You know, I take these things seriously, and he's like, nah, he doesn't. I was like, he's trying to make me feel better, being like, no, I'll sing a couple songs, whatever. I'm like, no, you don't warm up, and that kind of pisses me off, dude.
Yeah.
You know, and
that.
he's like one of those artists to the bones. Like, he's even hard to, like, you know, when we did the interview, it's like, it's just hard to, like, you know, you just want to, like, tie him down,
Yeah.
like, let's talk, dude.
What a voice, though. Like,
But just natural and creative, and, you know, I always saw bands try and, like, sing and scream. Often they do it poorly. But the guys I know, I mean, it's just, I always think, am I biased? But, like, Daryl from Glassjaw, Tim from VOD,
yeah.
they do it fantastic.
Yep.
I'm like, we could just, maybe Long Island could just claim that as our own. Like, we do that well. You know? But I can't scream like that. And
Me neither, yeah.
I can't do it. I would blow my voice out.
Me
These
too.
guys are naturals. You know, they're real naturals. Daryl will walk on a stage. Tim has this too. And you'll wait.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they don't really need to do anything. Like, some guys will stand on their head. Some guys have it, you know, mapped out. But it's the it factor. And to have it coupled with good music, because sometimes you have the it factor and a not very good band, you know, or, you know, vice versa or whatever. But it to
perfect
see
storm.
it, you know, it moves the hair on the back of your neck, you know, and, you know, they set their bars really high, you know. So I you know, I'm a fan, and we have history. And to hear them say that and say things like that to this day, like that moves me. You know?
Absolutely. I remember reading Revolver magazine. You see that one with
Yeah.
him? Fucking, I'm like reading it, and he named drops George, man. He's like, if it wasn't for fucking George.
That was all those bands. I don't know what happened in those years, but all the bands were really different, and all the bands were really good, and it was competitive. I don't care what anyone says. Like, if you got your ass kicked by Glassjaw or VOD and you were going on next, it hurt, and you worked harder. That doesn't mean you, like, hated them or threw whiskey bottles at your band for not doing good, but that is, like, what propels you. Is like,
Talking to you, Cold Chamber.
and it was just good to be around that, where people were like, you would put that other band on your show, and you get your ass kicked, or maybe you would do better.
It brings out the best in all of you. That's
It-
healthy, competitive.
It does.
There is a healthy, competitive way to kind of, like, do that type of stuff. That, believe me, when I play, I want to be better than you.
Right.
Yeah.
And that might sound arrogant, but it's like, well, what are you up there for?
You know what?
You
The
know?
audience benefits from that. 'Cause
Yeah.
everybody's putting, 100% putting a good show.
And you could be all love when you don't.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And you just, that doesn't mean you're brooding for the next week. It just
Right.
means, like, you're like, didn't quite get that one. But
Yeah.
that should move you to be better, or hopefully, you know, be on the next show. If you just
Right.
fell apart or weren't as good.
Yeah, you got to kick it up like the next show. But definitely, I always, for all of us, because we've all played in bands, and I think that's the way it is. Like, certain bands that you just look at and you're like, all right, like, I see what you got. And
I saw
like,
VOD 2 weeks ago
Damn
with Life of Agony. They were still
Killing it, yeah.
Tim walks on stage, he just grabs the mic, and just the fucking place erupts. You know.
He doesn't
You know?
say much.
No,
He doesn't
need to. You know, I feel like they've been around long enough that, like, if you don't know who they are now, like
What is the
Right,
set
but-
list like at this point?
Where was
I-
it? Mulcahy?
Mulcahy's, yeah. And I
Yeah.
mean,
Run that down a little bit.
yeah, I mean, you know, some, I mean, mainly new stuff, but I mean, they'll still pull out, you know, like Watch Out and DTO and stuff like
Right.
that.
Rhythm
but-
of the AK?
No, I mean, not that old. That I'm playing, like, you know, Society and shit off of the demo, but I mean, they still sound great. Brendan is still one of the fucking best drummers that I've ever heard.
Incredible.
You know, and
And
you
Actually,
know,
Josh
I was
from
about to say, now that
Minded
Josh
Matters,
is on second guitar, and he goes fucking apeshit too when he's
Yeah.
up there. It's like he you can almost see he enjoys playing one of his favorite band's songs
Absolutely.
in so many words.
Yeah.
And then he wrote on the last record, right?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I think like he might have, and that was
Yeah.
that was a good return.
How was Life of Agony?
Killed it.
Yeah.
Fucking killed it, man.
Yeah.
They
For a
just
long
came
time
out,
since
and I
I've
was just
seen
like,
that.
holy shit, man.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
fucking killed it.
Yeah, I saw the
You know?
video from it, and I was just like,
Yeah.
oh shit, everyone sounds fucking great.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and the setup there is weird because it's like, I guess like they have like the live area, but it's just like the bars are so prominent
Yeah.
there that
Yeah.
it's like weird. Like I remember seeing Social Distortion there, and that's fine because you're not really moving too much to them. But
Right.
like for like VOD or Life of Agony,
Yeah, I mean, I stood in the back because I'm a fucking old man, but I could still see everything.
Yeah.
But
Describes a lot of the Long Island venues as weirdly set up and
Yeah.
stuff, you know,
Yeah.
with the exception of a few of them. But I haven't seen Life of Agony in a long
Yeah.
time. Since
The
back in
watch was there. If
course he
if anybody
was.
had to know, the watch was there.
It was
so,
always
you know.
there.
They
Like,
shut
fucking
the
guy.
show
Goes
down.
without
If he didn't
saying.
walk through the door.
somehow
Empty Chinque.
Yeah.
somehow he just like like there's like 4 or 5 of him that goes out in a night. I feel like he just clones
Yep.
himself
Yep.
because he's somehow in every picture.
Yeah.
That's you know what? I'm gonna go with that theory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's at least 2, more likely 3 of Anthony Venti Chinques.
Yeah.
It's like a gremlin. You
Right.
feed
It's
him
right-
after midnight
Yeah.
and they sprout.
He's listening to this going like, yeah, motherfucker.
Yeah.
I want to make a coffee table book of all the pictures.
The
of all
scary
the shows.
icons.
Very
So-
photogenic in those mosh pits.
Yeah.
Well, because I always said he's so tiny that he just rises. Like you could just like almost sneeze him up to the top.
funny Glassjaw story though. You were talking about the being the competitive thing or whatever. I remember when Sky Came Falling and Glassjaw started playing shows together, they were
Yeah.
kind of like, oh, let's see who wins or whatever. And then like we were doing well, and then they kind of they did the TBT demo with Don Fury, and I was just
Right.
like, oh damn, like kind of like uppercut, and then we went on a comp with Rancid, and I was just like, yo, we're on a comp with Rancid, and then
Right.
my guitarist Cameron walks in because he went to college with Beck, and he's just like, they just fucking signed the Roadrunner, bro. I'm like, fuck.
Game over.
That was the end of it.
And then he released that record. It
Yeah.
was fucking awesome.
Yeah,
Like,
so
And they just blew up.
tour
from
with the
that.
Used and all that other stuff.
as soon as
so.
you hit play on Pretty Lush, you're like, oh my god.
Yeah.
You're like,
I mean, I still love that Don
Yeah.
Fury demo too. That
Me too.
TBT
Yeah, I
demo.
like it.
Shit was awesome.
I think I liked Ross Robinson. Seemed like he just kind of like agitated them
Yeah,
a little bit more
yeah.
than that's what I wanted or
Yeah.
something. Or it didn't. And I love that first record.
Yeah.
You know, and the second one, Worshipment Tribute.
Yes.
From beginning to end.
Yep.
I love it.
Yep.
that they tried a lot of cool different stuff.
Oh
on
yeah,
that.
it's
Yeah.
almost like a separate band when that thing came out. You know.
And I like a lot of the stuff they tried on that, man. Like his vocal range, like when he wanted to sing, you're like,
it
oh,
got
shit.
better.
Yep.
Yeah, it was
that
pretty
one
good,
got
man.
better on. Yeah.
Definitely. So, and Warner Brother too.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
like fucking Warner Brothers.
And then you got fucking Manny from Stillsuit, who's one of my all-time favorite bass players, killing it. So.
Animal.
you
Yeah.
know, so.
Speaking of bass players, let's talk about Eric Avery.
Yeah.
We're
I've
gonna
been
get
thinking
it-
about him.
Yeah, we're gonna get into Jane's Addiction. We asked George to pick a band and like go through their discography and just list his favorite to least favorite to favorite records, and he picked Jane's Addiction,
Yes.
which I think is a great choice. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
shoot it over to you as I sip on my Coppola wine.
So what do we do from least favorite?
Yeah,
to
least.
favorite?
Worst to first,
All right.
man.
Yeah.
Well, they have listed 4 studio albums, but anyone in the know knows there's 5.
Yes.
Right. So, but we'll start out with the least favorite, which is their most recent, which is The Great Escape Artist. And it sounds like Jane's Addiction.
Right.
Like it really does. Like there's almost nothing about it I can be like, oh God, that's so awful. And even I hadn't listened to it in a while, and I listened to it again because we were going to do this,
Me
and I'm
too.
like, you just do the same thing in your brain. It's like, Dave Navarro sounds great.
Yeah.
Wow, Steve
Yeah.
Perkins, that was really good.
Right.
Like there's nothing about it.
They have 5 records, arguably.
They have 5,000
And-
records.
They're one of those bands that I feel doesn't have a bad record. They just have records that are better than others.
Yeah.
Because man, revisiting all those records because I knew we were going to do this. Fucking Dave Navarro, like
Oh yeah.
especially on the earlier stuff. But Jesus.
Amazing.
But I like the single they released on that, and
That was End to the Lies.
that too. But I like
Soulmate?
the Immovable Object one.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I like that track.
Fucking
Yeah.
great stuff. So
I think you wrote me about that when it came out,
Probably.
like texting me about it, and I was like, listened for a little bit. I was like, when something moves you so much when you're younger, it is hard, and it's partly your filter,
Yeah.
and that's like kind of on you. But I've definitely been like, all right, well, let me check this record out, and there's just something in it. I'm glad they didn't like, well, let's try, auto tune, like whatever's
Right.
what are the kids listening to these days?
Right.
It's hard. You fault the band if they just move away from what they always do, and then you fault them if they've not moved away from what they always do. So it's like, but it just feels like
I think Perry got that out of his system in some of his
Other.
satellite
like-
party. Did you hear that?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I forgot
Oh,
about that.
God. Nuno Betancourt on guitar.
Yeah.
Oof.
But the thing with
Yeah.
them, they have one of those careers that they waited like 100 years in between records.
Yes.
Right.
So it's like you never know what you're gonna get. You're gonna throw everyone back in a room and you're gonna start writing songs fucking like 13 years later.
Yeah.
And then
Well, they broke up
again.
the peak of their powers.
Right.
Like right there.
You never know.
Right.
You're just older. Like the
Right.
songs that I write at 39 are different than the ones I wrote at
Well,
23.
I say it all the time
Yeah.
too. It's just it's so hard for a band like Jane's Addiction, a band we all grew up on, to come back and release an album that's gonna
Yeah.
be better to you than those ones that you came up with.
Yeah.
It's next to impossible.
Oh,
you know.
Of course. In some of this, I dig through and I'm like trying to find the fault, and I realize
Right.
like there really isn't anything like they
No.
didn't put auto tune on it.
Yeah.
There were times that when they released that there was like the live record. It was like not Cabinet of Curiosities. It was
Kettle Whistle?
Kettle Whistle.
Kettle, yeah.
I like
And they
that
put in
record.
that electronic stuff, and like that was a mistake.
Yeah.
You have Stephen Perkins. You don't need a drum machine, dude.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a mistake. But I'm going to listen to The Great Escape and Strays, which is number 4.
Right.
For you.
Similar problem.
Mm-hmm.
You're going like, did really anything off here? But maybe just the fierceness of Jane's Addiction when they were younger.
Right.
It's hard to hold that
Sure.
for ferocity. Is that a
Sure.
word?
I think they really
Velocity?
came
Yes.
close on Strays. I think they there was a lot of
They didn't have Eric Avery on that, right?
No.
That was the guy
he's
from
been-
Porno for Pyros. That's the first
Martin-
record he played on with them.
yeah.
Chris
he-
Cheney or no?
I can't
Martin.
remember his name. He
I
was
think
played
Chris
in
Cheney
Porno
was
for
on
Pyros.
these records. Martin
Oh, was he?
Noble was.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yep.
But the opening track on Strays and
great.
yeah, great, amazing. But funny enough, man, Entourage.
I know.
Yeah.
That fucking song is terrible. I don't give a shit. It's like
It's awful.
it's just not.
That fucking
What's that?
show
I
is
wrote it down.
terrible.
Superhero.
It
I love
deserves
the
the
show.
shit. You do you?
I do.
Oh, fuck that show.
I do.
Sorry.
I'm just saying, it's no First and 10. It's not.
Right.
It's no Dream On.
Dream On,
Do
great
you
show.
have First and 10?
Yeah,
You have Dream On.
yeah, I do.
like, yeah.
That's why I pointed.
Hello.
I don't have Dream On though, so next Christmas maybe.
On the Fire
Still
Stick,
holds up.
On the
Yeah.
Fire Stick, I've been looking for First and 10.
Yeah,
And I can't get it.
See,
It's the one
I told you that
HBO
shit
show.
wasn't worth the money.
I don't know, $39.
No, I know.
I actually saw Jane's on that Strays tour. They played the Garden
Too.
right after, like 9/11. It was October of that year, I believe.
Oh, really?
I
Really?
think that's.
I saw them at Jones Beach.
Yeah.
Night. Yeah.
They were great. Flea was playing bass. I want to say.
That makes sense, yeah.
My memory's so bad, but yeah, I think he toured with them for a while. But,
Yeah, and
I mean,
it's
it was
funny because
great.
Dave
Live, they're always great.
Dave
Yeah,
Navarro
that's
joined the
always great.
Chili Peppers. So
Right.
It's like they
And
flipped
then
the
they
script.
switched.
yeah.
I saw them at during on that Strays tour. Lollapalooza was like reinvigorated,
Yes,
and it was
because
Jones Beach.
I think that was like 06.
03. 03 or 04 or
Wasn't-
something like
that.
that.
was on Strays tour. The one that held that I saw.
Madison
that.
Square Garden was 91 or 92. That was
No,
like
I-
James.
Are you off
that was
by 10
Ritual.
years
No,
out of
I
that?
did see them after in October.
Put that other earbud in your ear. I think you're.
I
all
Oh
set.
no,
swear
I
to
saw,
God.
you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
I saw that too. That's why I know you're right.
See?
Holy
See,
shit!
Parker?
And they did like Dave Navarro's like he had a hit single by himself.
Yes.
Remember that he had that one song.
And they came out in the middle of the thing that Jane says, I think. With the,
yeah.
It
Yep.
was good. See, I'm no liar.
He has a
You
he
are
has a
correct.
really interesting documentary.
Is Carmen Electra in it?
Oh, about his mother.
His mom, 'cause
Oh,
his
yeah.
mom
Yeah.
got murdered.
Yeah.
I think it's on Netflix. I forgot the name of it, and
Morning Sun.
Yes, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's some deep shit.
But I haven't seen it. I just know
Yeah.
the name.
You gotta check that out. So, all right, so
Yeah, it's
number
good.
4, and what do we got? Number 3.
Number 3 is...
This is where it gets controversial.
All right, this is, you
Okay.
know, it depends on your mood, but
We'll
Shots
stop
fired.
the podcast right now.
I can back all these choices up, Sam. Nothing Shocking.
Ooh.
God damn,
That's number 3.
That's
And I'll
brutal.
tell you why.
Shocker.
everything's shocking right now.
I
Yeah,
don't know what to believe anymore.
That's my number 1.
Nothing Shocking is great. And this is like the theory of bands should only have 3 records, 1, 2, and 3.
Wow.
Nothing Shocking has all the songs, everything.
Yeah.
But if I'm comparing it down the line to the next 2, it's just a production thing. I think the production on Ritual is better, and what they captured on the first XXX record is better.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of the, like,
get
I'm
what you're
splitting hairs in a
Okay.
way.
No, of
Oh,
course.
hey, it's your list,
it's your
man.
list,
What
yeah.
affects you, yeah.
Right. I guess I feel like I'm trying to make you guys feel better.
Oh no, not
Your
about my
list, man.
choices. Yeah.
You did say 3 records, though. I fucking obviously Kiss didn't get that fucking memo,
Yeah.
you know?
You'll never make us
Yeah.
feel better. We're just angry nerds.
Right?
It's kind of
You
true.
know.
3
Yeah.
records, be done.
That's it.
Smashing Pumpkins.
Jane's
3
for
records
me.
should've
That's it.
been
With
done.
that Nothing Shocking was really my first total exposure to them.
That
'Cause
was
I
like
remember
89, right?
88, I want to say, but I'm not
88.
positive.
I think it's 88.
Oh wow. Okay.
But I mean, for me, it was, you know, we always talked about like BC Boys' License to Ill, and Guns N'
Yeah.
Roses was that album that everybody had, and you know, the Jocks or whatever, and this and that,
Yeah.
and different. For me, like Nothing Shocking was an album that all the outsider, like my friends that were like art school girls and the punk kids and the metalheads, there was something for just us. And we
Right.
all, there was something for everybody on it. It fits so many genres. We all loved it. I mean, from top to bottom, it goes to so many different places.
Genre defying.
Yeah.
Just like I remember.
Nobody
hearing-
knew what to make of it.
No one
It
did.
was genreless.
It
almost.
was.
yeah.
It was this weird fucking thing, and it was just like I like Jane's, and like you hear like Mountain Song, and you're like, what the fuck? And then you hear
Right.
Ted Just Admit It,
Yeah.
and then you hear Summertime Rolls,
Yeah.
and then you hear Jane Says, and you're like, how the fuck? Like these songs are so.
Yeah.
Like you weren't supposed to play acoustic and also play like really something.
There was zero
fast and
rules,
fierce.
zero
Zero
formula.
rules.
And I remember, like, you know, Mountain Song was like a heavy song, and some like meathead friends
Mm-hmm.
of mine, they're like, wow, this is good and stuff. And then I had that, what was that, Soul Kiss video?
Yeah, and yeah.
Where they're like making out with each other, and then it's
Yeah.
like they don't know what to fucking make
You're
of this.
like,
Like, wait a
All right,
minute.
enough
Back
of
to the
this.
priest.
Yeah.
I thought they were cool. No, but like they just, when you thought they were something, they were something else.
Yeah.
Like it, you know, they couldn't be put in a slot.
and it's like weird and corny to say sometimes, but it's like, man, that band really deserved it, because it's like they were like from like a school of like, they were just like a mixture of everything.
It was a lot shoved.
But and then
into a
ahead,
blender.
like Perry Farrell was like not a good looking dude, right? And he
Speak
didn't
for
have a great
yourself.
voice. And
Girls
he
like the
dyed his
style though. He
he had dreadlocks
Yeah.
back in 86, 87. Then put a ring through his nose. I mean, this doesn't scream like Warner
Fishnet
Brothers
stockings.
Records. This is
No.
not what people were looking for.
Right.
But it was a time where you had to work your ass off in the clubs, and a fierce, loyal following that was rabid. And that's like, you know, with Nothing Shocking, it's like, it probably would make sense if you saw the band, you know, but the record stands on its own as well. Like, you know, it's starting with like Up the Beach,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
getting into things like Mountain Song, like the bands that just start off with a bass line like that, they don't really hear that anymore.
Yeah,
and it's
sure.
so powerful, and just
Summertime Rolls, beautiful
Summertime Rolls is
ballads. on
yeah,
there.
it's a real like beautiful song.
Yeah.
And what a unique voice. You know, I mean,
Mine or his?
quality is
You got him to sing again.
Yeah.
Every fucking episode.
man. Sam Unplugged.
Sam sings, talk about Alex, talk about Metallica.
They
Dan
haven't
Terror.
come up yet. Oh,
Fucking terror.
Yeah, that's it. Those are 4.
Does
So.
Tan Terror know that Van Halen has more than 3 albums? Because that could break his fucking heart right there. Because for Unlawful Current of Knowledge is what, like 13, probably?
Probably. So,
Yes.
all right, number 2.
the first record they put out, which was the Triple X record,
Yeah.
which was recorded live, quote unquote, at the club's. It was called Scream in L.A. And they were actually signed to Warner Brothers. I don't know, like to do the Nothing Shocking record, and they insisted on doing a live record.
Oh, is that the story? Behind
Yeah.
that? Wow.
And
That's a ballsy
so they took
move.
$4,000 from their
interesting.
advance, and it was like Warner Brothers paid for this first record, and they didn't even really realize it. But they went back in and they overdubbed everything. They actually took the applause that you hear in between the song is stolen from a Los Lobos records.
Get outta
Remember
here.
Los Lobos?
Yeah.
And they like dubbed
Do I
all that in, but
remember?
it's like,
I was listening to La Bamba last night.
Nice.
well, Sam, have you ever heard? You know,
Yeah.
let's turn this over to Sam.
Of course, resident Spanish.
Sam, rank your favorite Los Lobos records. Tune in next week.
I was thinking of doing Slayer, to be honest.
Nice.
But, yeah.
But
Either
yeah, I
one.
mean, the Jane Says is on there,
Yeah.
you know, and that's, I think it's a better version than on Nothing Shocking. That's kind of like the Split and Harris
Trip
thing.
Away is such a great
Yeah.
way to kick that off, too.
And then Chip Away, the way it ends with that tribal,
Yeah.
like, it's incredible. Like, where the hell did that come from? And it was, you know, there's records that are ahead of their time and lead the pack. It's like a decade
Yeah.
ahead, or it's just otherworldly.
Absolutely.
And the sound of it sounds a little bit more like them live than Nothing Shocking is the big reverb, big sound,
Right.
you know. So that's kind of the, like, just a little bit difference that I like in that record. You just put it on and it's a whole show.
Sure.
And Pigs and Zen
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
like, you know, the guy, I saw Jane's in 1990 at the Ritz.
Nice.
Like, just a friend of mine liked him. I knew standing in the shower thinking, Ritual had come out, I think, but I didn't know anything about it. And I just grew up on hardcore shows. I grew up Murphy's Law. I knew the best frontman ever was all those hardcore bands. We were in small places. That singer seemed like he talked right to me. But this was a big show,
Right.
and I never saw a singer like that. That singer still seemed like he was talking to like an unrehearsed conversation, and I thought it was going to be a big concert, not a show.
Right.
And I fell in love with it because it was just this. It was a mixture of, at the time, a lot of bands were trying to do masculine and feminine, and they were just not nailing it.
It was forced.
It was forced, and they were just trying to like do something about like trying to get quiet and soft, and then try and get loud, and
Pixies formula.
yeah, it was just, you know, thought out.
Right.
But with Jane's Addiction, it was beautiful, and you didn't think those guys wouldn't throw fists. They didn't seem like they were soft. They were just this kind of combination of, like I said, like masculine and feminine, and like not afraid. Like Perry Farrell will come out in a dress. Like, that's not something that I would be like, oh, that's awesome, ever.
Right.
But he did it, and I thought that was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And
He owns it, whatever he does.
He very much owns it. All,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and all four of them are like, I mean, they're just fucking so good at their thing. Whether it be like Perkins or Avery or Dave Navarro or Perry, like they were just.
And now, what the controversy was that being their first album? Is that what?
Oh no, I was just saying.
everyone like kind
Because I
of.
saw on your Facebook thread today
Oh, no,
the
but yeah.
arguments going back.
No,
and
no,
forth.
that
Some
doesn't- I was
people-
saying-
Well, the mood in here dropped when I said Nothing Shocking.
Yeah.
Everyone wanted that to be number one.
That's what
whether
I
you
thought.
realized
was
it or
number
not.
one, Yeah.
But number one, I think, is Ritual,
Yeah.
because it is the sound, like the production of
Mm.
it. It's a little bit less like on the reverb side, and just like what was going on in the 80s, even though
Well,
that
you're
came
right.
out.
It's a little bit more raw.
Yeah.
As opposed to Nothing Shocking. Yeah.
And there's the whole, which doesn't exist anymore, like side B,
Okay.
where like you go on and it's like it's got 3 days,
Yeah.
and then she did. It almost feels like that first part of the record is like so fierce. Except
then-
Being Caught Stealing is awful. I hate that song.
God bless you.
But
Enough of
just
that
the
fucking
worst-
Okay.
song.
Yes.
When it came out,
When it came out, but still, for that to be a hit single, it's such a weird fucking
is.
song.
it is.
The video was cool.
Oh, video was awesome.
But it's just such a weird song that somehow became a hit single, and they'll still play the shit out of it.
Yeah.
You know, like it's not it's not a conventional hit, and that's like true to form to them. Like somehow they just were like, "Fuck it."
Like,
I
you would do a hit. And
I
that
think the
was
song is
one.
awful though. I'm not just like, oh, I'm like a cool fan, so I have to hate.
Did you
that
hate it like upon
Yeah.
first hearing?
right up front?
Right off the bat.
Like Stop, it makes no sense why it's a song. It's just so good.
Yeah.
It doesn't follow anything.
Nothing.
It's great.
Yeah.
You know, and
It's
then
got the long intro.
Yeah.
Right.
Señoras y señores.
yeah, it's why is you know.
I think that was from Los Lobos.
But yeah, then side B just like it had the thing you flip the record over, and then now it's more mellow, and it's 3 days is like Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah.
You know, and then there's just it. So that's why for me it's like number one. It's like the sound.
It's hard to
songs.
debate that.
It's hard. Like those
For
three.
me, nothing shocking and Ritual are interchangeable.
Same
Right.
thing. The
Depends on
the three of them, because even with the two covers on the Triple X one,
It's
I mean,
great.
you can't go wrong with
No.
any of the rotation of those first three. So, and then the same thing to me. That's Strays. I think is better than the recent one. So,
And
But do you know what their biggest selling record was?
geez, I feel like I'm gonna get this wrong. So let me think.
I wouldn't ask you if I thought you were going to get it right.
The Great Escape Artist? I had to
Strays.
throw in that one.
Oh, was it? Oh yeah, because of Entourage.
Everyone was waiting for it too. Right?
I was thinking because of
you know
Entourage.
Yeah.
But I always
okay.
think Ritual just has more years on it. You figured it would pass, but Strays was the biggest selling record. Maybe it was just the
wild.
time, Lollapalooza, a lot of touring.
I
who
went to
knows?
that first Lollapalooza, and
Me too.
in
Jersey.
Jersey, yeah. We
Camden?
drove that day. We picked
Yeah.
up tickets, and Ridge just drove up there. No big deal.
What it like some video store or some shit?
Tobacco, EJ's Tobacco.
Oh
and Ridge.
man, I loved when you would buy those tickets.
We
at
went.
places.
My friend's just like, you want to go to this Lollapalooza thing? Because that was the last year it was like that. Because then the next year I think is when the Pearl Jam and whatever, and it blew. The
Yeah, I think it
fuck
was number
up.
2. Yeah.
But 3 days. I can go back to it in my head right now when they played 3 days. Like it's probably easily in the top 5 concert experiences I've ever had hearing that song live, because it's such an epic build up to
Yeah.
the end of it. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps right now thinking about
Yeah.
it. That's the kind of band they were.
I thought at that time too they would they could be like a Fish. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
a band like that where
But
they have
good.
their own fans, they're just into them, but they broke up, but if
Right.
that's what I thought. I was like, I've never seen this. I've never seen like this is just your own thing. We didn't know it was going to turn into like alternative rock world and all of that, but I was
Right.
like, this is going to be a band that people just follow. Like
instead of parrot heads, it's Perry heads.
What
no, on
was the
second
story
thought, scratch
behind-
that. I'm glad that didn't happen.
so bad. What was the story with their breakup? Does anybody know? I mean, I've read bios on all kinds of bands, but I'm not familiar with
I don't
why they
know.
folded exactly.
Well, there was a lot
Perry
of-
just wanted to go solo. The Porno for Pyros thing was it?
I could tell you if you really want.
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
Yeah.
Please.
Listen, we have time.
Yes.
I mean, there was an addiction problem, and
Right.
Dave and Eric were starting to feel like they should not be doing that. So they were like off to the side, and Perry's like, who cares? Drugs, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. There's that. There's also the money thing. There was like a publishing split where Perry's like, I'm taking all this because I did most of the work. So there was like a monetary thing. Perry also was very like that Lollapalooza tour is like he got a lot of the money from that. I mean, he created the idea,
Right.
but if you're in the band, there was some of that money issues, and Perry Farrell himself would admit that he's just like a narcissist that's tough to get along with.
Right.
So it's always the thing. It's like if you meet someone that you're a fan of, like I met Perry Farrell once, but if you hung out with Perry Farrell, it's probably a nightmare. You know what I mean? It's probably not good. Being in a band with a guy like that
Good.
is
In the
is
bus
is
and
not that much
travel.
fun.
Yeah.
Like
David
I
Lee
just
Roth.
make your art and I'll listen to your records, but I don't want to hang out with you. That's
Right,
kind
yeah.
of so. I'm sure they were all, but they always do the same thing. They always break up again.
Yeah.
Because it's just a bunch of incredible egos. But I think Perry Farrell was a lot older than them. He was 20. He was like 27, and they were
yeah.
all like 19 and 20, I believe.
Oh, so he was sunning them.
He was kind of sunning them, and he's like like a entrepreneur
Yeah.
on some level of like all this money. And probably if you're in the band, you don't get all that. You don't understand all that. I mean, and there was just all these like different types of issues.
So Porno for Pyros put out a pretty damn good record. The
That
first
was a
one.
great record.
The second one kind of sucked.
Had a couple of good
Aside
songs.
from
at
Tahitian
that.
Moon.
Tahitian Moon I like, but
But
yeah,
the first
overall,
Porno for Pyros is like Cursed Female. Like those songs were fucking great. I
It was
mean,
Jane's Addiction.
it's a Jane's Addiction record.
It's like
Yeah,
the
pretty
guitarist
much.
listened to Jane's Addiction, like
Yeah.
listened to Dave Navarro. I felt like, you know.
and he became
Well,
a junkie.
Perkins did Perkins play? on
Yeah.
Yes, it was
Porno?
Perkins
Yeah,
and
right,
Perry.
Right. I saw them on that tour too, and they were killer.
was like-
That's-
Didn't miss a step.
Porno for Pyros at Roseland was one of the best shows I've ever seen.
Who played with them on that? Flaming Lips
Yes.
were there. That was
Wow.
a killer fucking
Oh wait,
show,
no, that
man.
Flaming
That's who
Lips
I
might
saw
open
them with, I
for
thought.
Jane's. I don't know, everything's blurring. But
What, you don't
right
remember
there with you.
1993?
you remember who was for who? But
If
Porno
you
for
remember the
Pyros was-
90s, Sam, you weren't there. Right.
All that brown acid. So yeah, I mean, the guy's legacy is going to be Lollapalooza as well. I think that's huge. You know, like Lollapalooza was, aside from Woodstock, that's pretty much like the
It
Right.
was the
The-
alternative traveling festival.
and everything spawned from there.
And the fact to have so many, you know, that it wasn't a vanilla lineup as far as, you know, you'd have a rap artist, you would have, you know, a metal artist, the industrial, you know, punk.
It was
He
everything.
It was all
basically copied
acceptable.
off of European tours, and
Right.
Reading,
Sure.
you know, where it seems so obvious now. We'll just take different types of bands and put them all together. At the time, it was like, you can't do that. But if you went to Europe, that's what they did.
Yeah.
You know, it was like,
Well, it makes business sense because you dip it into a whole bunch of different, you know, pools to get their money.
Yeah.
I think you want to reach the people that like different type of shit. Like, you know, I'd like to think that there's more of us that could watch Ministry and Ice Cube back to back and be just as psyched.
Sure.
You know, and I think that was like the gateway to a lot of people. You know, it's like it got exposed people to, you know, because as in high school or even like earlier than that, like it was just so like me versus you. You know,
Yeah.
it's like,
Right.
wait, you like that? It's like, no, that's terrible.
Absolutely.
And it was only like that one genre. You know, it's like,
Totally.
it was like,
because
wait,
the thing I remember the most with high school.
rap is crap.
Yeah, that whole thing, which is ridiculous now, but like being a metalhead growing up, and I had friends who were into the punk scene or whatever, and like there was like beef there.
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, there was a day where like, you know, metalheads going to a punk show or whatever, you get your fucking ass kicked or vice versa or whatever. It's like, what? You guys are like complete outcasts from society, and we are, and we're gonna like beef.
Yeah.
Everyone else hates us. Like, why do we have to have
Why?
a problem?
Yeah.
We have more in common than we don't. Like,
Completely.
you know.
But I think I grew out of that by like 13 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because before that it was just like, oh, you like Skid Row and you're not allowed to like fucking Technotronic, you know, pump up the jam or whatever.
You're not allowed to like.
Great
Yeah.
fucking concert right there.
What, Technotronic?
Yeah, and Skid Row, yeah. Let's do it, baby.
Who opened?
Well,
Okay, he's 2 weeks.
As long as Sebastian
Wait, who
Bach,
opened? You said Shannon.
Shannon.
As long as Sebastian Bach is playing with them, I don't care. I'll see them.
Me too.
But they never do.
No,
so.
that should.
I would listen to him read the phone book.
Yeah,
That guy.
he's like when they did that VH1 show, Super Group, right? That's what it was called.
Right.
Savage
Yeah.
Animal, man.
Yo, he was so
Animal.
happy.
So great.
He was so fucking happy with that name.
So
He was
great.
like, Savage Animal. Are you Savage Animal? And like
the
everyone's
disgust
like,
level of everybody growing every week with
Yep.
this guy. Like, oh,
everyone's like, oh my fucking god.
And he's on every
Every
fucking band
sentence such a-
VHS.
I love that guy, but
Yeah. Because he could sing and belt it out. But yeah, I think he's definitely like,
Fucking guy did Phantom of the Opera. Remember that?
Yeah.
When he did that? Yeah.
he also tied his dick in a knot on the Stern Show.
did he? I
Yeah.
missed that one.
That's why he was on Broadway, man.
Talent, you know, from beginning to end. you know,
Yeah, that's
what
why
he-
he was on Broadway.
Wasn't it the puppetry penis episode? Those guys from Australia.
Is that the way
right?
you
They're
can get
into
your
that.
voice? as
Maybe.
high as that?
Yeah, maybe.
You know, that's fucked up to
Here's
learn at
how I
44
sang.
when
Here's
I'm
how I sang. You've gone wild. Check it out.
How'd you hit those notes for Youth Gone Wild? Hold on, let
Let
me
me
show
show
you.
you something.
God damn it. Who knew?
To tie your dick in a knot, I would imagine your dick needs to be pretty fucking long,
Ah.
like a shoelace or something.
It,
What
it gives you a
kind of
lot
knot?
of details you didn't ask for.
What kind of knot? There's lots of different kinds of knots.
Is it really?
Yeah, you were in
Was he a Boy Scouts? You know?
Oh yeah, no, I don't know.
This is how I would tie my boat to the dock. My first trick.
Any knot is going to require excess
Yeah.
rope
would
or
think so.
penis.
Mm.
So
Shout
That's
out
our
to
Sebastian
Sebastian
Bach.
Bach's penis.
Oh,
Yeah, no,
shit.
definitely. All right, so we're gonna take a break, and
On
then we're
that
gonna. On that note, we're gonna take a break. Right? No one had anything else, right?
No. I mean,
so-
we finished with Dick, so what else is there?
Yeah.
Yeah, where do you go from there? Christ. I'm gonna have a
take-
cigarette outside.
We're gonna take a break and then talk to George about all his awesome bands.
Yes.
Sweet.
All right. Cool. Bye. Anyway, we're back. We're back. We're back here with George Reynolds, and we're talking about Silicon Valley. And I don't watch it, but my girlfriend likes it. And
Dude, it's
I
every fucking episode. I mean, I'll be laying there in bed and I fucking laugh so hard that like Sarah's just like, "Shut up, Dick!" Like the fucking bed vibrates. You know? Yeah, because my fucking stupid Irishman laugh. You know, like a fucking drunken witch on, you know.
me Lucky Charms.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, you know.
I was laughing when I watched Scout's Guide to the Apocalypse
Oh,
for like
that's
the 100th
another-
time.
yeah.
And like Karen's like, "You've seen this movie 3 times. Why are you still laughing?" I'm like, "But it's a prosthetic penis."
Yes.
And they're yanking
Yes.
it. And it's hilarious. She's like, "You're fucking retarded. What's wrong with
I
you?"
mean, when I started watching Silicon Valley, like I went into it, I'm just like, there's no way that I'm gonna laugh as much as I did watching Eastbound and Down, and it's pretty fucking close.
Holy shit.
Different, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
forms of comedy, but it's still fucking pretty funny.
When
It's
Dan-
just like nerd humor.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
very,
And,
it's,
like-
it's just super dry.
T.J. Miller, like I just look at him and I fucking laugh.
He's the funniest
Yeah,
one.
like,
So, okay. Like I said, we have George here. And I got to ask you, when you were growing up, did you think that this is what you were going to do?
No, not even close.
Really? So
Yeah.
how did the music kick it off in your life? In Lindenhurst,
Just-
right?
Going to hardcore shows,
Uh-huh.
you know, I had a friend who was really into punk rock and hardcore, and I was really into skateboarding, but wasn't really into the music. I just got into skateboarding, and we sort of shared. He was into Dead Kennedys and Butthole Surfers and all this, and I was into skateboarding. And you know, skateboarding at the time was like just part of that punk rock like subculture. And we shared. And then it was just, I was like 14 years old, and he was like, "Hey, there's a show, you want to go?" And he really hadn't gone, and I hadn't gone. If I was 14, he was like 15. It was a show at Hunter College in Manhattan, Rock Against Racism. And we went. And then once you get into punk and hardcore, like there's that feeling of like, hey, I could do that. And that's really what happened. It's just
Who was playing?
False Prophets, Apple, Nausea. It was all like true punk rock bands.
Yeah.
And then like the first hardcore show I went to was Token Entry
Okay.
and In Your Face at Sundance. Like after that, went to like a punk show, and then at like, you know, maybe I was 14, and maybe like 15, I went to Sundance in Bayshore and saw hardcore bands. And that was like a whole, you know, world open to me.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was just watching 50 kids pile on the singer. It wasn't on MTV.
It's
it was
powerful.
well, it's awful unless you're 15 with a bunch of testosterone.
Yeah, but I'm saying like when you first see something like that, it's just like you know, you almost feel like it is something to really see. You're like, oh shit, these people, like it's just like the passion and the love for these lyrics, and like you said, it might be, you know, no one knows them except for the people in that room.
Right.
But it's huge. It's such a like a
I think it's the intimacy between the band. There's not a big divide between the bands and the fans. That it you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like those lyrics, everything. It's a part of them. They're part of it. You know. They're
and
part
everyone
of
there
the
is
show,
feeling their own
almost,
thing.
yeah.
You know, everyone there is having some kind of weird. Is cathartic the word? You know, like depending on what you're going through, like
Sure.
these words mean something to everyone in there. And and that's awesome. Like when you first see it, you're like, holy shit.
It's it's big and it's loud, and it was 89,
Wow.
I think. So you didn't see it on MTV quite yet. So there was just a lot going on, and it drew me in. I mean, the violence drew me in. Fist fights at shows, like I never like got into it thinking like, oh, I believe in unity. It had zero to do with that. It was like I felt like a misfit, and this was the soundtrack. This is the demons in my head.
Yeah.
And it was louder than the demons in my head, and it was just, that attractive. So when you went to a show, it felt like you were doing something really underground, and it just translated. You asked me like how I got to sing, was that eventually you're like, I think I can do that, and if you have no talent, if you don't sing, you don't play drums,
Yeah.
you wind up being the singer.
That's it.
And,
You're
and
like,
hardcore.
all right, you got-
that's what happens. You're like, I was always pretty good with words and whatever. So that's
Cheaper
How
too.
that-
You don't have to buy a bunch of gear and shit.
it's
Yeah.
the best gig ever.
You don't have to lug shit around, and man, your vocal styling, like I said, it definitely has that abrasiveness. Like I feel like it hits you over the head. I don't know, it's just powerful, like completely. And I could see like those hardcore influences definitely on a lot of those records that you've been on. So do you remember like the first band that you sang in?
Mind of Matter.
Was it?
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
How old were you?
19. Oh, no, 18. I was still in high school, and we would just... It was like people I knew from hardcore shows, like Artie Shepherd, Eddie Reyes, that was in Taking Back Sunday.
He was in everything.
He was in everything. John LaFata. And I remember being at a show, actually like connecting a few of them. And there's debates about how this all started. But clearly I'm right.
Yeah.
And then they had an original singer. This guy, Mike Richardson, who's probably not listening right now, but
Oh, he's here.
he's here in spirit.
Yeah.
But no, he's, I talked to him on Facebook. But he was going to be their singer. And then he just kind of like didn't want to do it. And then I went there. I remember like singing with other people's lyrics, just trying to like figure out how to sing. But it's a hardcore band. Hardcore has that thing where you really can go out in spirit. It's, a bunch of people that don't know how to play with like something to say, so you can get by on that for a little bit. And we did, until you figure out like I do have something to say, and the guys in the band are.
Were they formed together as a band, and then you like how did it come together? Like you were part of the forming of it, or like
Yeah, that's what I was like alluding to. Is like I'm trying to remember. It's like I think Artie and Eddie needed a drummer,
okay,
and I like talked to them and said John LaFata, and then they got Mike Richardson to sing, and that was it. I wasn't in it, and then Mike didn't want to play,
Right.
and then I said I'll do it. I remember even saying like I want this to be like fun, like like Murphy's Law.
right,
Which, if you know Mind of Matter, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Of Murphy's Law.
Yeah.
Interesting, yeah.
That's
was-
my memory of it, but
So it's
now
kind
that
of
I
like
think about it, I might not be right.
just all fell together.
Yeah, that's it. You're right today.
But there was like some connection. I remember John LaFata was a friend of mine. We went to school together, so it was like connecting with Eddie Reyes, who's in Taking Back Sunday now, and like we just all like sort of knew each other.
Was Neglect around when
No.
they started?
Not at that time. They started maybe a year or two after Mind of Matter started playing.
And John was the drummer from day one, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I remember John calling me. He's like, we got a show or something. We played at Sundance on like a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
And it was like, no, wait, I called him. I got the show. I called him. You see how,
Yeah, it was a long time ago. Like,
Yeah.
what are we
But,
talking about here? Like 25,
It was,
26 years ago?
yeah.
Like,
More than
that's why you don't remember. It's all right.
30. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
A friend of mine,
moment.
a couple of friends had bands, and they were like, "Hey, you want to play?" And we were able to play like a Sunday matinee at Sundance. So, just trying to capitalize on like the hardcore matinee thing. So we got offered to do the show, and we did it, and we sucked. I mean, it was just awful. I mean, for the first 2 years of doing this,
And you guys were Mind Over Matter from day one?
yeah,
Who came up with the name?
Good question. I don't know.
I didn't think I would be
Why
hitting
do
you
I
with
feel
curveballs.
The first thing that jumped into my mind was John LaFado, the drummer.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know. I don't
Okay,
know.
that's it. I'll text Artie later. See
Yeah.
what he says.
But I think it took, like, for me personally, like 2 years to even get comfortable being on a stage. You don't even realize that you get on stage, you're emulating people.
Of course,
You're
yeah.
just emulating whatever you think you should be.
What were
You're
you
doing the
emulating?
opposite of what you think is good to not be emulating someone. It's just a mess.
Would you have HR in your head?
No,
Yeah.
not even. I think I was like, I have to be like stoic and non-emotional, which is like the easiest path to take because that just means you stand there.
Like
Yeah.
Nick Cave.
Like,
Yeah, like Nick Cave.
yeah, I mean, I
It's
wouldn't
like
even.
who would be like, you know, yeah, I think what you're saying, like as far
Who's
as a
influencing
style, like a stage presence, or was there guys you looked up to, or people you wanted, a style you wanted to emulate, or you were just going for your own thing straight off the bat?
At first, I didn't know,
Right.
but in the end, the best frontmen I've ever seen, which you just can't get near, is Jimmy Gestapo, Murphy's Law.
Yeah, he's great.
Just
Still
Fucking
does it.
so good.
from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And that's someone who engages everyone.
Everyone.
It's amazing. He should have his own show, his own talk show. He should
Yeah.
have like 1,000 more things.
Yeah.
I was never like a big Murphy's Law fan, but the times that I've seen them play, which is a bunch of times actually, that guy is definitely good.
Yeah.
Like he looks like it's just the easiest thing in
He
the world.
owns that shit, man.
He
it's
does,
so
man.
natural, and everyone
Funny
has a good time from
and
the
super
front,
funny.
or if you're in the back, man. It's just
We played,
Yeah.
Modern Matter played with Murphy's Law in Europe in like 94 or 95 or whatever it was. And like nobody like really spoke the language. It was in Germany.
Right.
And it was kind of just watching Jimmy Gestapo get every single person in that, it was hundreds of people or whatever it was, like get them involved. And, it was, I hate to sound like 100, it was before the internet. It was before you really are trying hard to like get
Yeah.
people to understand you. They don't speak the language. It was phenomenal. And it was nothing to him. It's zero like effort. That's just who he is. That's just what he does.
right.
And I mean, I loved that, everything from that to like we were talking about Perry Farrell.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also like, guys I admire. Like if you just watch the Ramones, like
Yeah.
they don't say anything, they don't do anything.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4. That's it. Yeah, definitely.
There's an amount of like we were talking about earlier about music and like why I got into it. Like I spent years just learning everything I could learn about what it would take to be a better frontman, which is learning neuro-linguistic programming, body language, how to spot a liar,
Wow.
eye language, everything I could think of.
You did your homework.
Yeah,
man.
totally.
Just to be, just to like,
I
if you could-
remember this conversation because you told me. I was like, oh yeah, that's
That's impressive, man.
everything.
yeah.
And it was always like, even when I took my first days, even just trying yoga or breathing exercises, it would always like be because I wanted to be better on stage. So I would watch comedians.
Okay.
Like, why does that guy say that?
Wow.
And that's funny. And the same guy, a different guy says the same thing. It's not that funny.
So
and
it's
it's
a real
all,
cerebral, like psychology kind of take to
that was
how
to,
to- yeah.
everything, neurolinguistic programming, or I would listen to, FBI interrogators. How would they get someone to admit or say something? And that was all just so that I could walk on a stage and be quiet, not say a word, and get the attention where I want. Misdirect. Magicians, comedians, this is all misdirection. Studied it. I mean, if you looked at my, everything from my bookshelf to my iPod, audiobooks to this present day is always just about the brain and like how this works. Just taking courses on, I took like an 8-day silent retreat just to be in silence in Northern California in the desert. Everything was always just to be a better band member, front man, whatever. I mean, forget about personal development. It was really about the band, and that's part of what I was saying in the beginning of this interview is just like a podcast or like a stand-up thing feeds that same thing that's been feeding. It wasn't like I got to get that melody right.
Right.
You know.
Right. Wow.
That's great. Yeah.
Impressive, man.
Definitely.
Yeah.
The guy
You do
took
your
the-
homework. I wish I had half that work ethic.
Yeah, I wasted my time playing guitar. I should have done that. So
Well, maybe one or two less bands, Sam.
All right, so you guys are kicking around under Mind Over Matter. You playing some shows, and what was the first thing you guys did? Was it the Wreckage? Was
The first thing was the EP on
Yeah, the
Wreckage
EP.
Records. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. What and the name of the EP though?
There was one you might not have heard of
Okay.
that was like half we recorded with them and then half was from the demo. And that was just like a self-titled whatever. And then the second one was Hectic Thinking.
Yes.
And it had Mindset Overhaul and all of that. I think more people know that.
Yeah.
And then the first album was Security.
Security was like abrasive. Like it was just like
Yeah.
like those first 3 songs are as good as anything on any hardcore record ever. And I've always like when I hear the Mind Over Matter songs, I feel like I said you have this like distinct vocal style that I feel is very much of like the old school hardcore vein, but then the music was always like completely different. It wasn't
Yeah.
like they didn't really play like a hardcore band.
Right.
Did you feel like you guys were doing something different?
Yeah, I mean,
Because
we
it was
had
pretty
that.
around that time. It was I can't think of another band that sounded like you guys.
Right.
We wanted to be different.
So
You know, there was like a intention that we were like, I mean, I grew up in Agnostic Front and Cro-Mags, like, you know, kind of like out of respect. You can't redo that. But in hardcore, you can emulate whatever you want and do really, really well. Like you can be a copy. I don't care what anyone says, but you can copy a band and have 200 people at your shows.
yeah.
And we just, you know, I was surrounded by really talented guys. Like these are talented musicians. They could do whatever they wanted to do. And like they, you know, tried to push it a little bit. And we got into like, as much as we were into New York hardcore, we were also into like Born Against. There's a little bit more of the noise,
Yes.
ABC No Rio scene that like crept into the band. We loved Rorschach.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was like most people didn't like both. You liked Sick of It All or you liked Born Against. We loved both.
Yeah.
And so we kind of like wanted the drums to hit hard and be on time, but have that noise come in. We loved, you know, Amphetamine Reptile too. Just, you know, a lot of the noise was really like a change that was happening. And I liked effects. You know, I wanted more layers of vocals.
When did you start using the pedals?
I did that really early because of Brian Beal from Neglect. You know, everyone's like, oh, it's a Jane's Addiction thing.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't. It was, you know, Neglect and Mind Over Matter practice in John's basement. And he hooked up all these pedals and stuff. And we just use it at practice and never do it live. And I figured out how to plug it in live.
Yeah.
And then I would do it live. And then, you know, eventually he
It was
did
like
live
it's
too.
your signature. Like
It's
when you see those
delay pedal.
completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just like I don't know, from every band that you went on to do.
And it was, you know, part crutch and part pushing the envelope, but I thought it was cool.
Well, yeah, because a lot of that stuff you do on the record, I mean, anyone, just, you know, those are the things that you just do on record. And they don't, you know, like whatever effects are on my vocals on, I don't think about recreating them,
Yeah.
but it just worked so well because you're like, fuck it, why not?
But some of those early shows,
Yeah.
trying to figure out the delay pedal,
Oh, of course.
is awful. When I listen back, I'm like, oh my God, somebody should just walked over and turned the level all the way down. Because
Yeah.
it just, to me, it sounded great. Sounded like Robert Plant in my mind,
Yeah.
but it was just a mess, you know. But then you figure out how to like work it. But I tried the delay pedal, and then I went to like effects racks, all those different vocal pedals, and I just always went back to a DD3, DD2 digital guitar delay pedal.
Okay.
It's just the easiest, it's the quickest, but I had like rack mountable effects, and it was just, I'm like, I can't fuck. I don't know how to like program this or whatever, and I just always went back to
Yeah.
that just one pedal.
But like, you know, what was going on in Long Island, like in 93? Like who were the peers that you guys were playing with?
Like I have to say, I hate listening to guys who are like, yo, back then it was so much better.
Yeah.
That's like an unattractive position to have. But there was just like a real peak with the PWAC, you know, and it was for people who don't know, People with AIDS Coalition. It was just picture a big warehouse where we were able to do whatever we want. There's a lot of shows, and there was sort of like a smaller area. We could have smaller shows, and you had at the time where bands could come and play the Roxy, we had a couple of instances where bands decided to skip the Roxy and play this warehouse that we had. You know, Fugazi skipped playing Stony Brook College to play the PWAC. And, you know, it was just a time, like, I feel like everybody had a band. They were like fanzines. It was almost a time, like, I remember like the fights back then, like, oh, this is like a, you know, like what's the word I'm looking for? Like, there was like infighting with all different groups. There was so many groups that we could infight. I was like, back then we just, you know, all the bands just watch each other. It was just wasn't enough of us to fight.
Yeah.
And there was so much going on that, you know, like I talked about before, like bands were starting to do their own thing. They were starting to get signed. They were starting to really, you know, come up, and it pushes you, you know. Modern Matter broke up, but when Day in Life started, we got signed within 10 shows. We did 0.
Yeah. And do you think
And
that
got
was just
signed.
like the footwork of Mind Over Matter?
It was, because the A&R guy for Building and Don Fury was the president of Building. It was all from the stuff we had done before, but I figured, you know, my math is 1 or 2 years and then you'll get signed.
Yeah. Yeah, of
But
course.
we were barely doing anything. It was like, we got signed.
So why did Mind Over Matter break up after that record?
I mean, Mind Over Matter has like a collective self-confidence of like next to nothing, of like a high school nerd. So we were always like feeling like, oh, we're going to break up. But Artie Shepherd got asked to be in
World's
Walter's
Fastest Car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was like, you know, he got, I mean, if your favorite
Walter
singer
from
of your
Quicksand.
Yeah.
Walter from Quicksand calls him. This is our favorite band.
Yeah.
Calls.
Hits you with the wand.
You know, and he was like, I want to do that. But we always just, you know, when we put out Auto, it was like people liked it, but it's that thing where you get more popular after you break up. And
Yeah.
it definitely happened.
Do you feel
Yeah.
like people didn't like it as much during it?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Because, I mean, like, going back to Security, like, that was a pretty goddamn good hardcore record, man. You know? And Auto
Yeah.
Manipulation was, like, it was just different. I love that record, too. But I could see the difference in the two. Like, it was just an experimenting of like, sounds and more noise stuff.
And it was a million road trips, tours, being with each other, showing each other music,
Yeah.
and going to Martin Beasy, who, you know, that producer for Auto Manipulation had done John Zorn, Sonic Youth.
Yeah.
He did all of these like noise things, and he was really cool with what I wanted to do vocally. Where I love Don Fury, but Don Fury is like, got to be clean, got to do this. Martin Beasy was like, oh, I hear a delay on that third word. Let's do that. I'm like, I didn't even hear that, but let's do that. You know, like he was really experimental, but like we got the sort of like discipline from Don Fury to be like click track. Be in tone,
the
be
other
like do all of these things that are really important, and like have like Martin Beasy be like, all right, well now let's play.
Yeah, let's play, because he was more of like, I guess, like giving you production ideas.
Yeah, he was like, well, we'll do this, well, you know, like all this stuff, and that was like what we needed, and we had to do it in like 6 days. Like we got off on the right foot and just like ran.
Did you guys ever, because like I know sometimes when somebody tries to give like production ideas in the studio that's not in the band, is that like a thing that people fought? Because I know that's definitely probably like in my head. You know, 'cause
I don't
you're like-
remember it ever being
No?
like, I think especially with Don Fury, it's like, well, he's Don Fury,
Yeah.
you know, and like you don't have the language. Like with Don, I was 19, I'd never been in the studio before. You kind of like, okay. I think we all felt like Security was half of what it could have been, because I was using the pedal. We were getting a little bit, and he was like, no, don't do all that. Like we got to make it cleaner, because he had done all those hardcore records. So like I get where he was coming from, and we said yes. So that's that's what that record was, and it's good enough. But when we were going to do Auto, we were like, we have to like do what we've been talking about. Like we all knew that we were just ramping up to something different.
To something different.
Yeah.
And that's, so out of the two, I guess that's the one that you feel
That's my favorite.
that's your favorite.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite song off that? To sing.
Automatic Crowd.
And it's funny because Artie uses that for his podcast.
Yeah.
That's the title of it. That's
What
probably
kind
the best song
of
on the
touring
record.
were you doing
My
at
favorite.
that point, as far as like your reach? Like, where were you guys headed?
With
Were
Mind
you
Over Matter
backing that
was
up?
coastal. We went down to Florida, you
Right.
know, play Pennsylvania, Connecticut.
What was the
and then we
reaction
did-
when you what was like the reaction like when you were traveling playing those songs?
Every reaction is the same for every band I've ever been in. It's like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
never. I mean, some's a little bit more like digestible than others, but with Mind Over Matter, we really. It's such a cliche thing to say. It was like, oh, it doesn't matter who's there. It really didn't. We
Yeah.
never played to big crowds until like maybe the end, when we, you know, our last show or something like that, or even the reunions. We played them more than we did at the time, but we really got insulated. We really got like. I learned from Mind Over Matter, like all I ever want to do is be good for these guys. Like I have to impress the shit out of them. It's that accountability thing.
Yeah,
Why
of
I don't want to
course.
show up late for practice.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that my lyrics are done. I'm good for them.
Give me these linguistic books and I'm in. So
I remember that first reunion at Coney Island High, and that was fucking
Oh, yeah.
insane.
Mhm.
That was so fucking crazy. And I think John was
Yeah.
playing down the street with Madball, right?
He's playing with Madball.
So
Oh, was he?
I think Pete Motive and what was it, Ben Silent Majority split
Yes.
the duties. And dude, he gets on stage. I think he had blue hair at the time, and I was like, "Holy shit, George has blue hair." Wearing a Thrasher shirt, so that goes back to the skateboard thing.
Okay.
And he just fucking starts singing, and I just see bodies flying. That's all I fucking remember. I'm like, "This is fucking amazing."
Yeah, that was,
I know.
you know, we taught Ben in the basement.
Yeah.
We're like, Pete, Motive, everybody stepped up to the plate. We're like, that's like learning how to just fail while everyone's eyes are on you. Like nothing was right. Everything's like, but learn from those guys, like how to just keep going. Like you never stop the song. You just keep moving. And I always, to the last band I was in, I looked back to my band. I was like, I just kind of want to make sure they love it. They think I'm good enough to be here. And like, you know, of course the crowd too, you know, but it changes, you know, and it sometimes it's secondary, but I just really, you know, that's that accountability thing. It's like, I will be there on time. You don't have to worry about me.
Yep.
And, you know, I learned that way early on with Mind Over Matter.
And what I like too is like as the years go by, I think like every year a kid will pick up like Auto or like Security, and those records like just keep going.
Still hold up.
Definitely.
You know?
So whenever you guys do like those reunions and stuff like that, you know, you'll see. I think you guys did like Long
Island Fest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. So you see like younger kids that
Couple
picked up those
generations
records.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fans.
Yeah. So that's got to be. That's got to feel good. Like you're like, you know, these records definitely found a home when we put them out, and even more so now when people digest them, which is a lot of things. Like a lot of records. I'm trying to think. Fuck. I mean, I didn't even. Like, let's say the Pixies became one of my favorite bands, but it wasn't until like later on where I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, I get this now. You know, like
Right.
When sometimes your ears aren't ready to hear something.
when
Really
Fugazi,
hear it.
like
Yeah.
I'm like I want to hear Minor Threat. Fuck Fugazi.
Right.
And then one day I'm like listening to Repeater, going like, this is pretty goddamn good.
Right.
Yeah,
But
sure.
it was just because I was ready to hear that. So.
Right.
Plus, I think like what George was saying, like they were talented guys,
Super talented.
super talented, and you know, even after like Mind Over Matter breaks up, you start doing Day in a Life, the other two guys start doing like Error Type 11, like
Right.
everyone's
Yeah.
still holding their.
John-
John fucking starts doing Madball, and then like
Right.
Death Cycle, and like
John is like probably the best drummer I've ever seen.
yeah.
He's
Like it's
And you listen to Mind Over Matter and Neglect, and you're just like, holy fuck! Like the drumming on this is
Yeah.
so,
He's-
light years of ahead of everything.
and
Yeah,
he's so like
he's so
talented but non braggadocious.
Yeah.
Like he would just love to like hang out and drink and laugh.
Yeah,
And like he's just been playing drums forever. He played with Sheer Terror.
Yep.
That's not an easy gig to get. You know, it's not an easy band to be in, and it's not easy music to play. And Madball, like, you got to think of, like, you know, what these bands are. They're more than just their songs and their name. They're Sheer Terror and Madball is like a thing.
Yes. Yep.
So people are ready to shit on you, and he's, you know,
Yeah, absolutely.
I would lose my mind if I had to, like, step into that position.
Yeah.
I would over prepare. Like, you could see I print out Wikipedia pages, and I'm an over preparer.
Got a pie chart over
He's
here.
like, he probably listened to the record a few times and just nailed it.
Yep.
And he has, like, a very lovable personality. So it just makes it even better to be around the guy.
Yep.
He's like, all right, you know, drink, smoke a little, and go play. And you're
Yeah.
like, God,
Always-
I wish I could do that.
Yeah,
Nah.
always never not smiling. when
No.
I see him,
Nah.
so
And I
it's
mean the rhythm section between him and Scott too, you know, just completely in the pocket playing the two of them together, you know. So
And John can figure out all that noise. If you listen to Mind Over Matter, we were pretty messy. What people always said, "Oh, you guys are so tight." It's not true. It's just that John was.
yeah,
And in that, you know, in small venues, it was just like the drums were right. So we could kind of do whatever we needed to do.
Find your way back.
yep,
'Cause he
Maybe
was
in later
lockstep,
years,
right.
reunions, we did personally all get tighter. But back in those days, we were not. It's just that John was. And that's like a big deal. But then he could
Sure.
just then do Madball.
yeah,
You know, it's hard to find a brain that can do all of those things. And then Sheer Terror, you know, like go from double bass to, you know, single bass.
Yeah.
With, you know, there's a lot there. And you'll never even hear him like talking about it that much. He just does it,
Yeah.
you know? It's-
Shout out to John, John LaFada. All right, so then you figure, how long after Auto comes out that you guys just decide that you're kind of gonna play your last show and do your thing?
It probably was only months. I mean, we broke up in
Wow.
November because I remember it was like right around Thanksgiving that we broke up. So it was the same year whenever Auto came out.
Yeah.
I think we toured in the summer.
Was everyone
Europe?
ready to do it, or was it like a sad thing?
It's hard to say. I know that Josh wasn't that into breaking up, and maybe Scott wasn't because I think at one point me and Scott Martin and John LaFada were going to do a band. This is just before Day in the Life. And then John got into Blaze Camo, which was the singer of Yuppie Side.
yep.
Yeah, he
I
was
remember
doing
that.
that.
I remember that.
And we were like fluttering around a little bit. And I wanted to do like a more concise band. I didn't want to do like a noise band like Auto Mutilation like Might Have Matter was. I wanted to do like Filter. Like just, you know, and
That's funny because that's completely what you ended up doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's
kind of
pretty
like what
close.
Day in Life was. It was like,
Yeah.
let's just try and get a little cleaner.
yeah.
And that was because of Josh DeMarco. He wasn't a part of that original like idea. It was me and Scott Martin. But then Scott was. It's like the timelines are blurred. But then I think Scott maybe necessarily couldn't do it. And then Josh got into the fold. And then me and him were like, well, let's just write like Minor Manor with like cleaner, you know. And then we started doing that and getting other players.
Yeah, it definitely had a complete like I don't like genre names, but post-hardcore really fits it because I feel like that's what happened. You know,
Yeah.
like, it was like the natural progression after hardcore.
Yeah.
And it had that New York like underground sound of
The,
like
the dual vocals back and forth, which they pretty much perfected
Yeah.
Day in the Life, you know.
and just that handsome helmet.
Yep.
feel
Orange
to
9.
it. Yeah, it was
You know?
just of that world, man. So you said 10 shows and then TVT gets you.
10 shows tops.
Yeah.
It was like I had like all the knowledge in my brain. I'm like, we're never gonna, you know, like it's not gonna happen, guys. And I was totally wrong every step of the way. Because Still Suit got signed to, you know, there's TVT Records, and they had a subsidiary. Don Fury was the president of Building Records, and they only had Still Suit. And then Julian, the singer of Still Suit, to his credit, like literally pushed the pile of cassettes and submissions away. I was like, Sean, listen to this. Like the A&R guy, like press play. And he's like, this is great. So we talked a bunch, and I was like, listen, guys, this is not going to happen. And they were like, we want to sign you. And I'm like, all right. Well, the thing is that we got signed, but it's going to take like, you know, I don't know, a year till we can record. It was like a month
about
later.
tomorrow?
Here's your studio date. And I was like, all right, that's fine.
Yeah.
But then it's going to take like, I don't know, 6 months before the record will come out. It's like, well, your record's slated for like a few months later. I'm like, fuck. But by the time we get to tour, it's going to be like next year.
Yeah.
And it was like
Tomorrow.
a few months later. Within 4 or 5, maybe 6 months, we were like signed, record, out on the road. So it was like the same way we started. It was like the same way it moved and the same way we broke up. It was just like fast.
Wow.
And we had that same thing with the Day in the Life record, which was like good enough. But once we toured on it, we played 2 years on that record. It felt like it would be more fierce. The things we were writing were like, it's going to be like Auto Manipulation was. Like, you know, we were listening, you know, even like how the Deftones record, like
because that was around
97.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was
around
And like that, like, you know, like the vocals, I'm like, this is what we need to do.
Yeah.
And we had written maybe 8 songs and it's like broke up.
Fuck.
So it was just kind of like a couple of years in and out.
Tell me that Max Cavalera story again.
Which one?
Oh.
All of them.
And a little cold chamber too.
I think you I think you sang a song with him, right? At a
Yeah.
show. Yeah.
Max Cavalera is like one of those dudes who like to this day, if you just walk up with your demo, he's gonna listen to it. I mean, he has no business listening to your shitty demo, and he's just a different level, and he was, you know, like they say, you shouldn't meet your heroes, but he's like one of the guys you should meet because very welcoming, very like extraordinary, very kind with his time, like charitable almost, and he just was like, someone was like, oh, Max wants to meet you, you know, wants to talk to you in the bus. Like, Max Cavalera wants to talk to me in the bus? I'm like,
This was
all
on
right.
your tour with him.
Yeah.
Right?
Was Soulfly?
Yeah, because the drummer of Soulfly was Roy Mayorga.
Yep.
Okay.
And Roy was in Nausea, was the sound guy at Wetlands. We just knew him forever.
It's getting somewhere.
And then at
Okay.
one point, Day in the Life needed a tour manager and a sound guy. We were broke, so we needed like the combo of tour manager, sound guy. We asked Roy. Roy said no. He had already recorded with Soulfly, but he was just in between before they started touring. And then he was like, all right, I'll do it. Just pay me up front so he could pay his rent in Manhattan. And we toured with Roy for 2 months with Cold Chamber and Seven Dust. And Roy is one of those guys that fucking knows everybody and everybody loves him. So it was great. So we had that connection. So by the time that Soulfly tour came around, Roy was finally touring with Soulfly. And I guess when they're looking over bands, he was like, yeah, Day in the Life. Those are my boys from New York. I
that's
did their
awesome.
sound.
That's great.
And he's another generous dude. Like, that's the few and far between that people that don't have to do things and they do. And Max, you know, when we were touring with Roy as a sound man, he's like, hey, you know, we're in Arizona. You want to go to Max's house? Like, Max Cavalera? Yeah, yes, please.
Yeah.
So, like, we met Max, went to his house, like, hung out with his kids. And so by the time we went on tour, he's like, well, I want to do this Beastie Boys song, you know, Time for Living. You know that hardcore song on the Check Your Head record? Time for Living?
Yeah.
So he comes in. You know, at the time, there was no Google lyrics. Like, we didn't know what the lyrics were. He wrote up what he wanted me to sing.
Right.
He said what he was going to sing. He's like, all right, we'll do it, you know, tonight. I was like tonight? Yeah.
Like
It's
2
be
hours
ready.
tonight.
Yeah.
I was like, when? You know, he's just, and we did it. We did it like, you know, a bunch of shows in a row. And he was just always at it. Look for like, help young bands, always try and like be there.
Wow.
And Roy was like that too. Roy was the type of guy. I remember one time we were in the van and someone had given us the demo of, you know, their demo. And someone in the band like was like, whatever, and like threw it. And Roy was like, what are you doing? And he picked up the demo and he's like, you know, you were a demo band once. Like, and like opened it up and like put it in. I mean, the demo turned out to be horrible, but he was just,
The point.
Yeah,
The
it's
principle.
still, yeah.
but he was like, and he was in Soulfly. Like he was, you know, like he didn't, and he was like, don't be like that.
Right.
We were just like rowdy and on the road, and someone in the band was like, fuck this demo, and didn't listen to it. He's like, don't do that. And he picked it up and put it in. It's like, you know, that's a different like mindset, you know, and Max is like that. if you listen to an interview with Max right now, he's like, "Oh, we wrote a new song. It's like really heavy."
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you've been saying that for 30 years.
yeah,
and you're
yeah.
still into
Did
it.
you listen to anything from Chaos AD?
Yeah.
That's it.
And it'll
That's
take
it.
a young new band on the road and play to 200 people or 5,000 people, 50,000, whatever it is, and give it his all. And that's like a different element than a lot of the metal tours. We did a lot of metal tours.
Yeah.
Testament, Cold Chamber, Seven Dust.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's just all, yeah.
You guys did a Testament tour?
We
No,
did.
hey,
That was the
don't
first
do-
tour we did.
Wow.
Wow.
What album were they on?
They were probably
Souls-
1997.
Probably
So-
Low. It's probably the Low album
Ooh.
with Tempesta on drums.
Yes.
Yeah.
okay.
Yes.
There you go.
Ding, ding, ding.
Who later on played in
White Zombie.
Also
Yeah.
Size Matters, the
Yeah.
great
He played with a
Helmet
lot of
record.
people, man.
Yeah.
Tempestas all over the place.
Now, Day in the Life, the three other guys, obviously not you and Josh.
Mm-hmm.
Where did they come? I mean, I know that the bass player was Fleischman from
Yeah.
VOD's brother, right?
Yep.
And what about the other two guys? How did they
Mark
kind of come into the fold?
was friends with Josh. I mean, Josh brought in Mark and brought in John Camusi, the drummer. They
Who was
were
another
friends
great
forever.
drummer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they had played together in something else. I'm drawing a blank on what they played together in. But he brought in John, and Mark was someone. And Mark is one of those guys that just has it. He's talented as fuck, but he really did have of different people that we would thinking about getting in as guitar. When you meet someone
Yep.
and they just show up and you're like, I kind of want to hang out with this dude.
Mm-hmm.
And the way he spoke and what he talked about, shy guy, like he's not like someone who has like bombast, but he's just very like, yeah, I want to hang out with it. And he's like, oh, let me hear that song again. And he just had a way that I was like, this works. I'm gonna spend a lot of time. I want to be with this dude on tour, and he was just super talented too.
That's awesome.
How'd you find touring with those metal bands, like the Receptions and the stuff? Were they good pairings? Were they good tours? Or,
Everything is opposite of what I thought it would be.
right.
You seen a pattern here?
Got it. Were you guys selling like a lot of merch?
Yeah. I mean, you had to sell your T-shirts for more than you want because you're playing with metal bands, so you
Yeah.
have to match theirs.
Right.
But we were like, we're a hardcore band. Just give us a van. Don't spend money on us.
Right.
And then you open up at 2,000 seat venues with Cold Chamber, and they have a sound guy, they have lighting, they have all these things, and you're like, wow, we can't compete. So you just kind of want more. But if you take a band like Cold Chamber, which was just in that era of makeup, Marilyn Manson.
Managed by Sharon Osbourne, too, so I'm
There you
sure
go.
there's
Right.
a lot
This
of
is-
money
this
behind
is
that.
what I'm
There's
talking
some
about
good
before.
fucking strings, man. She definitely probably opened a lot of doors.
Them getting back together, that was a good move.
Nice. Me Loco.
They've
You
been-
know?
Cold
But
Chamber?
that was
They had a
fantastic
reunion.
tour.
Yeah, I'm sure.
We were
Yeah.
like, all right, we'll do it.
Yeah.
Right.
But you realize those kids that went to go see that, at the time, sometimes it was the only show that went through their town at
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
You play Iowa and it was
Yep.
one show a month, 900 kids.
Mm-hmm.
That's who you want to play to.
Yeah. Because
Sure.
they'll never find you guys other than that,
They're
That's
starving
it. Yeah.
for new music.
You open up for Max Cavalera.
Mhm.
That's that's the show you want to
Yep.
do.
Yep.
But it brings a lot of older, jaded motherfuckers that
Mhm.
are like, prove it, or I don't want to see you. So even going to the South, we were like, we're going to play Texas, all these things that sounds absurd at the moment, to think about that it was a bad idea, but we were like, not sure. But it was like the South was 10 times better than when we played the Whiskey in LA. We played the Roxy and all the things you want to play. Irving Plaza in New York City was
Yeah.
fun, but it was it was tough. We would play in the South and they would be the owner of the club was like, yeah, well, we own 5 strip clubs. So just, get you guys together and we'll take you. No, your money's no good here.
Oh man.
Go to New York, Irving Plaza, and they're like, no, that pass is not good enough. No, where's your, you need 3 passes to get in. You're like, I have a guest. Can I walk them in? Absolutely not. It's all union. It's all very you cannot do it. They just treated you like,
I have 5 strip clubs.
yeah. And then in the South, I was like, can I get these 10 people in? They're like, that's it? Yeah. no
Yeah.
problem.
Bring them on in.
So it was the opposite.
Uh-huh.
And, I enjoyed touring with Coal Chamber. I didn't need to be friends with them,
Yeah.
but it was just a blast because they brought in a crowd I would never play to. We toured with Strife.
That's sweet. That's awesome.
It was the most boring tour I've ever been
Was
on
it?
in my life. The end of the tour was a pizza shop.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like, they're awesome dudes. I love them. I don't want to say anything bad.
Yeah.
But, like, after a while, you're like, well, we're touring. Coal Chamber was sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Strife is
Strife
straight
was, like,
edge.
you know, making fun of each other all day. So
I hear you, man.
kind of was like, wrong.
I believe me. Just wink twice, and I know what you're saying. But I think you had some questions from Dan Turr and Rob Link.
Fucking Dan Turr.
And
Big
Tam making an appearance.
day in the life.
right.
And so,
So Dan Turr wanted
How
to
do you
know.
feel about Stomp 440?
Dan Turr wanted to know what brought on the demise of A Day in the Life. Question 1.
We were writing for our second record, and I remember Josh, you know, this is the only way I remember it, was that Josh was like, I want to do my own thing, and I'm taking the drummer.
Oof.
And the drummer, we fired John Camusi, and we got Stefan from Glassjaw, which is the original
Yep.
drummer, which caused a lot of problems because I was friends with Glassjaw. It was like a whole bunch of things, and it was basically like, in a moment, we had 8 songs written, and he wanted to do his own solo project. And it was kind of weird because if you're an artist in a band and you go to the record label and say, I want to do a solo project, they're just going to say, yeah. There's no commitment. But then you say, I break up the band that's in debt. You know what I mean? We're a band with our first record. You're just in debt. It's just the name of the game. You're in the red. And then they were like pissed. They didn't give him a solo deal.
what happens to that debt, by the way?
It just goes away, man. Like, that's sort of the ups and downs of the record business. You can say anything you want about a record label, but we got a couple $100,000 free interest loan that just went away.
Wow.
So, you know, it sucks to be on a record label and in ways, but another way, if I took out that loan, I'd still owe it.
Yeah.
What's your student college debt up to these days? I mean, like,
$80 a
we
month.
toured all the world, you know, and didn't pay back a dime.
Okay.
Wow.
All right.
So the band breaks up. Did you get any, 5-10 years ago, have you ever been offered like a reunion to get back together?
A couple times people asked, but it just wasn't emotionally a band I think people would just come out for. You know, if we did a second or third record and it moved people, but I think people were like, oh, that record's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I don't think it rocked the world.
What about
you
for
know?
you,
It
though?
was,
Like, in a perfect world, is that something you would do, though?
I have no interest.
Okay.
You know,
Wow.
it's nothing bad against
no.
those dudes.
Of course.
Yeah.
But I never got pushed from those guys either. So I think everybody in that band, if you asked them the truth, a second or third record would have been the auto manipulation of what we wanted to do. Would have been that. And I think Josh wrote a lot. And I can understand why he'd be like, well, I might as well just do my own thing. And that's what happens. You get signed, you're touring. Everybody, when you're touring and you play every night, first you hang out. Over time, you hang out with other people. Everybody's going to give you an exaggerated sense of who you are. You're more important than everybody else, dude. So I think that's the danger. And I think, like Josh, was a super important person in the band. But, you know, to kind of like have everybody be there and write your songs with you and then be like,
Yeah, because
gotcha, bitch, and like take it away. It sucked, you know. And I was like, I wasn't at every rehearsal because I was like, when you're done, I'll start writing vocals. And it's like, in a way though, it's like, I don't know if I wanted to go back out on the road for a couple of years doing it, you know. So it was kind of like, all right, I'm okay.
You were okay.
Yeah.
leaving, yeah. So, was that it for them?
That was it for Dan Turr, and then my buddy Chris that used to sing for my band. Obviously, you did like Earthling, and then Wiretap, Year of the Dragon, kind of like what you did with Jane's Addiction. If you had to do like your favorite bands, worst to best, in your personal experience, what do you think it would kind of rate as?
Well, it's weird because it probably falls on records more than it does on the actual band, but I mean, the most meaningful emotionally was Mind Over Matter. But the way I felt the best and the most comfortable was probably End of Earthling and like Into Revenge of the Dragon, where you're like, I feel like I can sing when I want, I can do what I want. Like you finally figure out like how to do this. So some of the Revenge of the Dragon shows at, you know, Mr. Beery's felt like every molecule in my body was working, more so than when I was trying to figure it out with Mind Over Matter. Day in Life probably, it just gave me the most touring experience, gave me the most like figuring out how to turn a crowd on, like how to walk out in front of people who just do not want to see you, man. You know, thousands of people.
That is,
And have to do it over and over and over. It just moving into that was like experience wise. So it really is hard to like figure out like, you know, the Jane's Addiction albums maybe
for your own personal stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like good and bad, but like musically, Day in the Life meant the least to me. I think it was the worst record I was on.
Okay.
You know, but the best record I enjoyed was Order Manipulation. Earthling, I felt like same thing, was like great ideas. I would just love to have gotten to a producer who could say, all right, just cut this out.
Yeah.
And let's just do a song with just Tracy.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do a song, George, move you in here like like a Rick Rubin.
Yeah.
I mean, you know. I would love to have seen what Earthling could do.
Yep.
Just as like we always thought of ourselves as like the Wu-Tang Clan, like everybody could go off and do other things, but we just come back and do Earthling, and like Tracy could do a solo record, I could do a hardcore record, and that always felt like a missed opportunity to me, you know.
I remember because I went to school with Mike Leota, who was in Earthling.
Yeah.
And it was around the time that I started coming back around again, because I had some like, you know, I got sober in like 98, but I was still away. And I started coming back like around 2000. And I saw him at the Swing Set in Bayshore, and he gave me a CD. He's like, oh, I started a band with the singer of Mind Over Matter. And it was 2 songs, but Jill was in the band.
Right.
And why did Jill leave?
Well, Jill... It was a few problems with Jill.
Okay.
Jill was like, you know, just a savant as far as how good she was, but didn't have any work ethic. We'd all been in bands before. This was her first band. She missed practices. She missed a show. And it was always like mediocre reasons, you know, didn't call. And she got pregnant. So the idea was like, well, we'll get someone to just fill in while you're having a baby. In her mind, it was like, well, it'll just be a month that I'll be off. It's like, it doesn't really work like that, you know, like I'm not a mom, but I figure it's gonna be a little bit more than that. And your track record doesn't indicate that you're gonna be back with ease. And then so we're like, we'll just have Tracy fill in. And then it was like Tracy walked in, it was fucking game over, because she's a front person. She's you know,
what was the band she was in?
A Day for Honey.
Who
was on TBT.
Yeah. Which was annoying because we were Day in the Life, they were A Day for Honey. And we'd always get confused. You know, we wouldn't get confused, but people would get confused. Yeah. So,
and then from there, you guys had John from Tension playing guitar, right? Mm-hmm. So, man, I'm trying to remember like those early songs were really, because you figure it was like you and Tracy singing.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you had Dave Case on bass, who's like fucking, he's in Helmet now.
Right.
Yeah.
But like Dave Case is like just like a musical genius for the most part. Like anytime, like, I mean, he's a harmonizing machine. He could sing. Like I had him sing like harmonies on 2 of the recordings that I did. And he is just, I don't know. He's amazing.
Me and Sam try and sing and figure it out. And we work on it. And like, for a guy to just walk in and like just, you know, put down his beer, no warm-ups, and just
put down his beer completely. Just
do it well, and walk away, and not in no ego, like not be a dick about it. He just and you're like, why is the backup singer always better than the actual singer? It's always the case.
That motherfucker was fantastic. You guys even did a Tool cover.
We did, yeah.
How the fuck did that come about?
This guy, Anthony Esposito.
They did what? So no, it was Stinkfist.
Stinkfist. Yeah.
The breakdown was great because you had Tracy singing the quieter verses, and then you came in on the chorus. It just,
and Dave actually sang
the last part. So
Yep.
yeah. So go ahead. Tell me how.
Anthony Esposito. Do you know? Remember what's the band? He was in Lynch Mob, like George Lynch.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
What do you say, lasagna? That's one of yours right
No,
there.
that's like
George
Derek.
Lynch
That's
is God.
that's Derek Schilling's band.
Nice.
He was like a friend. He actually recorded Day in the Life on the first compilation we did. I just met him like a million years ago.
Yeah.
And then like he would just have these projects and he'd be like, oh, you guys want to do it? We did a couple of cover bands or whatever, but I called him a few times to do live sound. He was just great at like live sound and shit like that. So and then he was like, oh, I have this cover album we're doing. You guys want to do it? So, sure.
Oh, so it fell on a cover album.
It was a Tool cover album.
Get the fuck.
There
out.
was a record company that was like, they figured out they could make money by the way they did it was, it wasn't covers of Tool. It was covers of covers.
Okay.
They had this like mad genius thing. It would have been mad genius if it worked. It did not work. Of like, no, we're not doing the cover. We're doing a cover of a cover. So we don't have to pay the royalties to said band.
Okay.
You know, and it was just like, he asked us to do, it was one of the thing I did. I can't remember what band it was, but it was like, how do you just like, can I just do like a Jane's Addiction cover album? Like, do you have to pay for this? And it explained the breakdown. I'm like, that's some asshole with money, just trying to like, or with no money, trying to like figure out how to like, you know, get these records done. And when it comes down to like the courts, it's like, no, it's a cover of the cover,
Yeah.
not the original artist.
Back when people still bought records and he was still scheming. People were still buying records, and this guy's like, how the fuck could I make even more goddamn
It wasn't the
money?
producer like Anthony. It was just the guys who were like contacting him. But he was like, he would just get, you know, blocks of money.
Was his
It's like
name
just-
Jerry Heller?
No.
Okay.
It would be a much better story. We'd have started the whole night with that story. It was Jerry Heller.
I'll always remember that time because I felt like it was like a fusion time. I think a lot of bands were like experimenting with certain sounds, which you guys were. Like Mike was DJing and
Yeah.
had like a lot of like, you know, like he had like synth type shit. Like a lot. He was just
He did,
basically
yeah.
mad scientist behind.
You guys used to do a Quicksand cover too,
Yes.
right?
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Lan, was it Lan? No, that you guys did Omission.
It was a cover
We did
of a
Omission.
cover.
Oh,
Yeah.
there we go. Cover of a cover.
It wasn't a cover of Quicksand. It was a cover of a cover.
Cover of a cover.
If
Get it
Walter's
twisted.
listening.
Yeah.
Back off,
We don't owe
Walter.
you anything.
Yeah,
You already
slow
took
down.
Artie. You took
That's
Artie,
right.
so just
Get
relax.
the lawyers off speed
You
dial.
want to just hang me upside down and take the change out of my pocket?
Artie calls him Wally.
yeah.
I'm
Wally.
like, damn, you guys are that tight. You could say
Oh
Wally.
yeah.
There was some time off, wasn't there, before Revenge of the Dragon?
Yeah, because I got married.
Okay.
So I did the thing where I was like, you know what? I don't think I should do this anymore. I got a lot of things to do. I got to straighten up. And then
Time to
as
grow up.
soon as I got divorced, I was like, who wants to start a business?
How long
was
did the
like-
marriage last?
Officially, it was a year, but I mean, we would kind of having, straight issues like about 8 months. And Revenge of the Dragon, all the first, demo and all that was just written off of like, well, now I have something to say. I have something like, you always
You're
write
right.
about girls and shit when you're, in every band you've ever been in, but this was like fierce. It's writing about divorce, which is weird. And it's
all coming back to me now.
yeah.
Definitely, and that was a great lineup. I'm trying to remember the original lineup was like you, Jay Booty, right,
Yeah.
from Earthling,
Mhm.
Joe Rubino,
Joe Rubino was
bass,
first. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Greg Kubacki.
and Greg, who's now in Car Bomb.
Right.
Yeah, and I just remember that opening riff to the title track, "Revenge of the Dragon."
Yeah.
Still one of the best songs that I've ever heard you on.
That first demo to me was better than anything we recorded after that. I mean, just because I was in a bad mood and it was just we were just like, well, we'll just, do this demo so we can find a guitarist.
It was
Greg
4
was like,
songs, right?
3 songs.
3 songs. Okay.
And Greg was like, I can't be in this band. Like, my friends were so good to me. I was like, who wants to be in a band?
Yeah.
I got this shit I got to say. And it was like, whoop, everybody just moved in. Here's these songs, wrote it real quick. I was like, well, Greg's not going to be in the band. Joe wasn't going to be in the band, so like we just need to like find players. So we'll just do this demo so we can find a guitarist, and we kind of like slapped it together for that type of emotion, that type of lyric, that type of like what was going on. That's the way you record it. You can't think about it too much.
No.
It was just like get in, get out, and that was the whole idea of Enter the Dragon. It's like just get in, be fierce, and then there was just like a lot of like there's just more players coming in and out of it that I think over time it was just like then I was just like, why are we doing this?
Yeah, it's kind of like hard to like keep it what it is once you start like people leave and then go.
Yeah.
It's hard to get because I mean chemistry, man. Chemistry is like, you know, you go into a rehearsal space. If you keep seeing, I mean, you change anyone in any fucking band, it's just gonna change the band.
But you just need writers. And
Okay,
what
yeah.
happened is after we changed players, you know, we had like Chris Red, who's a good player, but you just need a writer. You
Yeah.
need someone who's annoyed at you that they have so many songs and you're just, you know, that you haven't heard them yet. And like, it's the only way to like keep moving on, you know? So it was just kind of like, you know, you go to rehearsal, you're playing the same songs over and over. We had Josh DeMarco actually came in for a little bit. At one moment, he was like, came into the band. I was like, all right, well, we have a writer. And then he just disappeared. It's like, it's the third time I was with this guy.
Yeah.
And he split. I was like, it's like the worst. But you just need writers, you know, and I can't write songs. I just need you to write the songs and I can, you know,
Yeah.
write on top of it. And then so it just got stagnant. And then I started doing Wiretap Crash with Alex, you know.
Yeah, which we're gonna get to that. Another quick little break, and then we'll finish up here.
Time for the top 5 soon.
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
we'll hit up Wiretap, and then we'll go into our top 5.
Drop
so.
Joe Ciato's name a couple times.
Damn right.
One of the best Long Island drummers.
Always. All right, we'll be back. Hey. All right.
My oldest band is 96.
we're taping.
Oh,
Yeah. Who cares?
I'm ready. We're
Start
back.
over.
We're back.
Wait.
Phone's updating.
Delete everything. Okay, we're back, and we're gonna ask George real quick. So then, the last thing that you did, as you were saying, because you know Alex Amarudin, Mariko, Derek, and Joe Ciato,
Yeah.
you guys all formed Wiretap Crash.
Yeah.
So I want to touch upon that because you guys made that one EP.
That's it.
Yeah, but it was fucking pretty goddamn killer EP.
I'm happy with it.
Yeah. So, did you think the songs were a little different for you to sing over, or like I feel like it was in your wheelhouse now?
Yeah, it just everything I've done is just incrementally. I never like, all right, well, I'm gonna do an acoustic solo song. Like nobody wants to hear that. Or I'm gonna do a hip hop song.
Do you remember?
It's just like it's like, you know, 10-15% harder than I've ever done. Like I gotta hit that harmony.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, well, it sounds like him, but I'm not trying to like, you know, do something that is outside the wheelhouse.
No, it definitely. And Alex is a riff master. He plays simple but super memorable. And then Derek is like, you know, Derek plays like Ian Love from like Rival Schools, or like Tom Capone, like where they just add these like notes here and there, and it just makes everything go from like, you know, a 10 to like a 15.
And Alex just writes a lot, and Derek's more into like arranging.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of easy because it was like Alex just write, and me and Derek would be like, all right, we'll just put this here and that there. And it was just like easier because Alex didn't have a problem with however you wanted to arrange it.
Yeah.
And it's
that's cool. That's fine.
And it's nice when you're doing vocals to be like, can we just try this? We just flip it and shorten that and elongate that. And, you know, I always think of myself as like not a songwriter. So I'm like, could we just try it this way?
Yeah.
And then in the end, if someone's like, well, that sounds good, then I'm like, all right, fine. But I kind of got to get it out of my head because I can't explain it, you know? So it's like, well, we'll just try it this way, you know, double that part and shorten that part. And they were all really good about that.
Yeah, it was a super easy going band, especially like you said, it was, I guess, because it was like a fun thing. You know, everyone just knew you were going to play a couple of shows, maybe do a recording and stuff like that. So it was like no pressure. You guys weren't.
That's why you didn't do too much, because you needed Dick in the band.
Yeah.
To get it really happening. You know, it's
Yeah.
like if everyone's like, yeah, no problem, then you're probably not going to do too much.
Yeah, so everyone's just laxed. And then I'm just gonna shout out that one time, man. I'm like, I got him on a track. I was like, yo, I need 16 on these right here. So Playing Dead made a record, and I got George to sing a few lines.
But I
on
asked
it.
you on Parasite Dynamite. You doubled my vocals.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh, it's Scott's house.
That's right.
Scott Gross.
I was on the compilation for
One, 100,
118.
118. Yeah. Damn. Okay. Shit. Well, there you go. Everything from Mind Over Matter all the way to Wiretap, and I'm sure there was like 100 other questions, but eventually we all need to go to fucking sleep.
Yes.
Right.
And you guys stop listening after Jane's Addiction anyway. So, as usual, we're gonna do a top 5, and this top 5, we are discussing our top 5 debut punk hardcore full lengths. Not the EPs, not the 7 inches, the actual first official full length. So we're going to do those 5. And we're going to kick it off with our guest. George, what do you have for number 5?
Is this really in number order? Because I just put 5.
I don't give a shit. Do whatever. You could lie to me. I don't give a fuck.
We'll start off with the obvious.
Okay.
All right. So Sex Pistols, Nevermind the Bollocks.
Yeah.
Right. Moving down the list, I would say Sheer Terror, Just Can't Hate Enough.
Oh, no, we're going to go around.
Oh,
Yeah, so we got number 5.
got
So
number 5.
so Sex Pistols.
I'm new here.
It's okay.
That's all right. By next episode, you're going to be great. So I love that record.
Yeah.
I think as a kid, it's one of those names that sticks out. Obviously, later on, they're almost like maybe Nirvana. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like they had their thing.
That album was a perfect, moment in time. It's the songs are so good on it.
Yeah,
I
Body
mean,
is my favorite.
some people like, Malcolm McLaren put them in. Whatever the hell the story is, who cares?
Yeah.
Because that is a perfect album.
Yeah.
There's anthems on it.
Against
one
all
after
odds,
another.
like it doesn't make any sense that these degenerates
Right.
made this
Totally.
record,
Yeah.
and they're. I think it's a lot of credit to the producer, probably, which is sort of like underrated in a way.
Sure.
But I don't think anyone at the time would hear like it starts off with Anarchy in the UK.
Right.
Like it would just doesn't make any sense.
Yes.
Like that it would be as big as it was or as influential, and it still hasn't sold like tons and tons of records. But just
No.
everybody knows it.
Yeah, everyone knows it, and then that was it. Like, the band, like, imploded. Like, it was just like, okay.
The
that's
art,
it.
the cover too, the artwork, it's all iconic. But
Yeah.
I mean, really, song after song, there's not a weak spot on it.
No.
I don't
No.
think whatsoever.
Beginning
No,
to end.
not at all. All right, so number 5, Brian Langan.
Number 5, I had the Damned. Damned. Came out in '77. I always loved the Damned. This was actually, I was reading up on it. It was the first full UK punk album released. These guys, but it has so many good songs. New Rose, One of Two, Neat. I always liked the whole thing the Damned had. It had that Dave Vanian had that vampire thing, and all the Captain Sensible, Rat Scabies, but they're all really good players. The talent level on that album is phenomenal, and I'm still a damn fan to this. I went through their goth phase, their punk phase, whatever. I've always been a fan. There's a new documentary about them out that I've yet to track down.
I gotta watch that because, like, they're one
Aren't
of those.
you glad we're something dead yet or something like that? I can't remember what the fuck it's called, but
They just did some shows. They just did some
yes,
shows.
anniversary shows. Yeah.
Like 40 years, right?
Well, yeah.
God
long
damn.
time. Still going strong.
That should make them pretty old.
They're very old.
They're one of those bands that people tried to push down my throat always because I was a huge Misfit fan and whatever else I was into. And I could just never fucking get into the Damned. And, like, people are, like, yelling blasphemy. I don't know what it is. It's one of those bands that I should be into. I should like. I just never.
Were they on Return of the Living Dead or no? Were they on that soundtrack?
No, I don't think so.
Should have been.
They should have
Should have
been.
been.
That's
Yeah.
the same thing, but like hearing you describe it, I'm like, maybe I should check that out. Maybe I was wrong. Like, like,
They're like album to album. It's a different band almost. Like, but when they first came out, it was straight punk band. But just they really played their instruments well. They stood out from the pack a little bit. at that
Absolutely
time
stood
period,
out. Absolutely stood out.
And it was just the weird look they had. This,
Guns N' Roses covered one of their songs. New Rose.
That's right. New Rose is great.
Yeah.
That's a killer song.
I wonder whose idea that was. I hope it was Duff or Izzy. You know?
It'd have
I
to
thought
be.
Slash.
Really?
First thing that jumped into my mind. I don't know the Damned, and I don't know Guns N' Roses, but that jumped into my head.
All right, we'll go
Matt
with
Sorum.
we'll go with Slash and Matt Sorum. All right, so Parker, number 5.
I picked a band called Bane. The album is "It All Comes Down to This."
So hardcore.
Yeah, you know what it is. It's
That's your wheelhouse.
It starts off with a quote from Apocalypse Now, so being like a fucking movie fanatic. The recording is shit. It's one of the worst recordings I've ever heard in my entire life. The fucking
Shout out to the engineer.
it was Steve from Today Is the Day actually recorded that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
and
You're gonna blast them on a first name level.
oh yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
kidding.
yeah. And
Just in case.
just in case,
You want to
you
know
case
who to
you
hate.
heard
this.
Yeah. I just love it because it's got a perfect blend of like old school, new school, and the dude from Converge plays guitar, so
Okay.
which is another one of my favorites. So
Man, this is tough. You know, I have 5, but
It was your idea.
I know. God
Your
damn
phone's
it.
back up. Are you just stalling right now?
No, actually, it's it. That was a fast backup.
Nice.
I almost lost everything. Jeez. All right, fuck it. I'm gonna go a little left field. I'm gonna leave the Dead Milkmen out of this. Shout out to them. So my number 5 is a newer band, and this record came out in 2007. The band's called Gallows, and the record is called Orchestra of Wolves. Man, it's definitely one of the best heavier records I've heard of the last 10 years. Seeing them live, too, is just chaos. They have these amazing, frantic guitars. Man, I can't say enough about them, and they still had that noise to them. And then the title track, Orchestra of Wolves, is one of the best like punk hardcore songs I've ever heard in my life. The refrain, the ending, everything about it. That's my number 5, Gallows, Orchestra of Wolves. Fantastic if you've never checked it out.
I've never heard that. I gotta check
Oh
that
man,
out.
it's
Yeah.
fucking great. They even do a Black Flag cover on the record, Nervous Breakdown.
Nice.
So, number 4.
I wanted to hear about Dead Milkman.
Uh,
Skipped.
Yeah, no, I had their first. I had a Big Lizard.
That's a good.
All right, number 4, which I alluded to. I thought we were
Yeah.
just ripping out the list before. But Sheer Terror, Just Can't Hate Enough. Which, that's...
Even I know
at
that
the,
one.
At the time, for New York hardcore, you had Sick of It All, and you had a lot of bands. But here was a band that did... It talked about, like, being depressed. Everything wasn't, like, about respect and unity and all that. Paul Bearer took it, like, to the side that was like, why you got into hardcore? Because you were a misfit. Because you didn't agree with everyone. You didn't.
Yeah.
And they recorded it at CBGB's Live. Actually, not like as a live record, but they, did their tracks on the CBGB stage. And they had songs in there like,
Just Can't Hate Enough.
yeah.
Basically, which is like everything you described. It's like I don't give a fuck about your Lower East Side pride and fucking I'm just a working class fucking just everything in that song. It made me listen to it. Like I said, wasn't really much of a hardcore fan, but Sheer Terror definitely was one of those bands that reached me.
That's, there was a lot going on with like Lower East Side and like, it was almost like a skinhead pride where there was like, like a move towards like, almost like American pride, which is weird because the Lower East Side is like so like, punk and all of that. But here was like Paul Bearer, saying like, I don't care about any of that. I'm just, just a working class slob. And even in the record, doing songs where he actually sang.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody sang on these records. There was like, people tried like to do a record where you'd sing like, 7 seconds or whatever, but he did these things like Twisting and Turning and Roses where he sang a little bit. There was a little bit of effects on the vocal, which sounds absurd if you know Sheer Terror, but he tried everything. If you know about Paul Bearer and Sheer Terror, is like he likes rockabilly and Motown and all of this, and then it's only second to what Paul Bearer is live, but you hear it in the music, and
He
it
could
just
sing, man.
rips.
He could, when he wants to, like on some of those recordings, he could really actually sing. Is that the one where is that the record where they do the Cure cover?
No, they did an EP after
Okay.
that with the Cure cover.
With a Cure cover. They were always one of those bands that stuck out. So
Yeah,
good pick.
moving on.
Yes.
Number 4, Langen.
I have Dead Kennedys, Fresh Fruit for Rotted Vegetables. I love this album the first time I heard it. I
You can
remember
talk about East Bay Ray.
I love East Bay Ray. I think I know like a lot of people, you included, like Jello's voice is just
I can't get over
it's
it.
terrible to
Yeah.
some people. And I can't defend it.
Yeah.
It's definitely
I
an
get it,
acquired
but-
taste. I get it. I think he's one of the smartest minds
Yeah,
in
definitely.
the business. But East Bay Ray's guitar sound was like nobody else's
Valid.
at all. The
Yeah.
way his picking style, the melodies, the everything was completely different. That and Jello's voice set it apart. Plus, it's so political, very charged. Has so many great, California Uber Alles, Let's Lynch the Landlord.
Political, but not politically correct.
Yes.
You know, like
Yes, but this was a guy like that knew what the fuck he was talking about, and my favorite album by them is probably Bedtime for Democracy. But this album had a big impact on me in high school, big time.
Parker, number 4.
Number 4, I chose a band called Terror, Lowest of the
Oh.
Low. Fronted by this guy Scott Vogel, who sang for Slugfest, Despair, Buried Alive, a bunch of happy bands. And first
Feel
time,
good band.
yeah, first time I saw this band was at I think it was Hellfest 2003, and it was just like this whole barrage of like, like I know we hate using like labels, but like a bunch of emo bands. So it was like Static Lullaby went on, and like Further Seems Forever, and like and everybody's just like standing there like making out with their girlfriends or whatever. And this band Terror just comes on and just like,
Are you guys tired of making out?
yeah,
Here we go.
like just brought it back to like Agnostic Front, like Madball, like straight up hardcore, and I've just been following them ever since.
Yeah, they just played Black and Blue.
Yes, yep.
Well,
Yeah.
the video looked awesome.
Yeah, and the guy that sings, I'm actually going to see him because he's doing a reunion band with the band Buried Alive that he sang for, which was before Terror, and they're playing in Philly in July. So I'm pretty much going to that solely to see them because I never thought that they were going to do that.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, so-
All right. I thought they were going to
Parker's
play.
hitting a lot of shows. I'm
Dude,
gonna
I'm
step my
exhausted.
fucking shit
I'm
up.
fucking
You were like
exhausted,
my
man.
guy.
I thought they were playing like on the corner of like
No,
24.
Philly, man. That's why I
They're
got
on
to plan that
Hempstead
shit. Like,
Turnpike by the
got to
McDonald's.
plan that shit a year in advance. Yeah,
He needs the motivation.
that's it.
So okay, my number 4 is a band that I think is the modern day Misfits to me. I don't think they have a bad record. They're one of my favorite bands of all time, and their first full length record is called "God Damn It," and that record is by a band called Alkaline Trio. Man, the lyrics are so dark, so they reminded me definitely of like the Misfits, but the melodies are great. They were a punk band, but they were just beyond a punk band. They were like a new wave band playing as a punk band. Goddamn, it was their first record. There's 12 songs on it, and there's not one bad fucking song. I can't really even think of a bad record that they've ever put out. They are definitely probably my favorite band or one of them. So Alkaline Trio, God damn it, coming in at number 4.
Quattro.
Number
Quattro.
4. Number 4. Everyone's like, why don't you talk with a Long Island accent? I'm like, I don't know. I'm sorry.
I got that covered. for
Coming in at number
everybody here.
4. Drinking beers and
With a
Wanta.
bullet.
Yeah, with a bullet. All right.
And they
George.
won't know who's who when we're talking.
Yeah, you got to keep the accents distinct.
Number 3, George.
I have Cro-Mags, Age of Quarrel.
Yes.
Good one.
That's
Can't go wrong there.
That's, there's an element of Age of Quarrel that has spirituality in it, but, the whole street justice. I always find that the most interesting when you can combine like completely different elements. Krishna and like, I'll kick your ass on the street.
Right.
But it sounds amazing. I mean, even just beside lyrically.
I think they
know.
meant it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's any different than what John Joseph or Harley is about to this very day.
Yeah, today,
Right.
yeah.
That's why I think there's a million conflicts with the band.
Absolutely.
But it's tough to beat that record, and you have street guys with talent. You know, just it's that whole thing. You know, they put into a studio, and it starts off with like a stick click, and that's what a hardcore show is. It's
Yep.
like click, 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 dun dun dun. I mean, and it just opens up the record, and then by the time you get to like Malfunction and all these things where like, yeah, John Joseph's voice was different and weird, but it held up in heavy metal crowds.
Yes.
And it
Yeah.
Yep.
totally changed hardcore.
They were on
it
some
brought
big tours.
Oh,
with
they were
that
one of the
record.
first,
Metal in a little
quote unquote crossovers.
They had big
totally
tours on that
without
record.
being like, we're gonna try and bring metal in.
Yep.
They just
Right.
did.
Yep.
You know, and then
People
everybody
came
else
to
kind of
them.
like, you know,
Yeah.
I love his story with when they played with Motorhead. Do you hear that story?
No.
Oh, he was on a podcast.
John Joseph?
Yeah, no, it was I forget whose podcast, but I guess they Cro-Mags were opening up for Motorhead, and something happened where I guess they couldn't do it, or they weren't allowed to. Shit, man, now I'm gonna fuck up the story. But I guess John Joseph was like, nah, fuck this shit. He fucking was trying to fight Lemmy.
Really?
But at that time, I think he said Lemmy Security was like all Hell's Angels.
Uh-huh.
So they were like, I guess they put out like kind of like I don't know if it was a hit, but they were like, you know, as soon as you see this kid, you know, beat the shit out of him or do whatever. And Lemmy squashed it because he was like, nah, he's like, it was our bad. He's like, fuck it. And then the next time, I guess, or maybe they picked someone else to open up. Something happened.
Okay.
So Lemmy honored it, and he was just like, fuck it. He's like, next time we go out, he's like, we'll take you guys out. And they did. And he was like, honestly, he's like, Lemmy, stand up dude.
Yeah.
So, definitely.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. All right, number 3, Langan.
3, I got Suicidal Tendencies
Nice.
self-titled.
I'm so glad you picked that because
Yeah.
I left it off, but that's
Me too,
It's that record. Oh my! I can't even tell you how many times I played it. Like it practically turned white.
right.
You know what I mean? From black on the vinyl. Every song on it. I Shot Reagan, Institutionalized, obviously a classic. Suicide's an
So Your
alternative.
Mommy, yeah.
I can't say enough about it, and I've always loved the band, and I've loved songs they've done here and there, but that never
Quite as
did
yeah.
what that record did to me. Plus, in the whole skate culture and the whole,
Right.
you know what I mean. And I was always hearing so much New York hardcore and stuff like that at the time. It just that whole Venice thing was, you know, a little entrance to a different world that I really didn't know much about, you know. But I think it's a perfect record, start to finish.
Start
That's
to
it. Like,
finish.
the skate
yeah.
culture wasn't New York.
Right.
I would read in Thrasher magazine about these
Yeah.
things in, you know, I would wear a suicidal hat, but
Yeah.
it had nothing to do with, you know, it was just Butthole Surfers. And
Right.
I remember reading like Butthole Bowl, and they had like, you know, skating.
Yeah.
It really wasn't New York.
That merch game was on point. With
Yeah.
Suicidal,
Merch game was
too.
crazy.
You know, the possess the skate,
Yeah.
all that shit.
And they
man,
were like,
you know?
they definitely embraced that like cholo thing.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
They
Yeah.
were like,
Look at Mike.
I'm like, watch.
the
I'm like, wait, is this dude Mexican? I'm
Yeah.
like, is it Miorez or some shit? And like, supposedly, those are like the scariest
Oh,
fucking
yeah.
hardcore shows like back then.
Yeah,
They were like the OG DMS almost.
But you
know?
named your band Suicidal Tendencies.
They
Like,
had
that
a
is a,
tough crowd,
a risk
man.
beyond,
Yep.
like,
Tough crowd.
you could wear a Dead Kennedy shirt, but it could be like, oh, this is cool. But Suicidal Tendencies
Yeah.
is like, you know,
And talk about chops too, Rocky, man.
Oh,
Amazing.
sick. With that old
Underrated.
school friggin' Pittsburgh hat,
Some
man.
songs he would just solo the whole freaking song.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
they
he's-
last the whole song
Yeah.
was a guitar solo. There wasn't
He's
even anything.
Killer. He
Yeah.
was always like, even when they went into like their metal phase,
Yeah.
it just made sense because he was just on that level.
It was that album and a Welcome to Venice comp that I had back then that I played all the time. That had Beowulf on it as well. Los Psychos.
Okay.
All that whole Venice sound. It's killer shit. But that album is
And he,
legend.
Parker, number 3.
Number 3, I did Hatebreed.
Nice.
Satisfaction is the Death of Desire.
That's the one.
Yeah. This kind of, I feel like, put Victory on the map, this album. I mean, that fucking thing sold. Holy shit.
Yeah.
They were also the first band to go after Victory for their money, but that's a whole different story. They did tours with Slayer on this. They went to Ozfest on this album. pretty cool thing. They had the day off in 2001 when we played Hellfest, and it was actually Earth Crisis' last show. And Hatebreed was actually such a big fan of Earth Crisis that they flew there on the day off just to play Earth Crisis' last show. So I
Wow.
always thought that was pretty nice and pretty cool of them. So
Nice.
you know, but
That's awesome. My number 3 is Fugazi, 13 songs.
Sweet.
It's a perfect record, and it took me a while because I just, like I said, I wanted Minor Threat, and when I was a kid, you know, like 14, 15, you had the discography. You had Minor Threat discography.
Yeah.
You hear filler, I don't want to hear it, fucking like, and it's like, wait, what the fuck is this? Like, Waiting Room? And you listen to these songs, and I just wasn't ready for it.
Right.
But when it hit and I started to play guitar more, I'm like, this is fucking like crazy. Like, I can't even play these songs. I don't know how they go. Not a bad song on that whole record. Everything about it, just classic. I think it's a classic fucking record.
I wasn't into them right from the get-go either. It took me a little bit.
Yeah.
And then once it, same thing. Once it clicked, it was like, oh, shit.
Yeah, because they
Wow.
were just playing so different, and the chords and the melodies and what they were doing on all their records, but specifically on the first two. On the beginning of my guitar journey, I'm like, holy shit, all those Discord bands. But
Right.
13 songs, my number 3.
Nice.
Number 2.
Number 2, I have Quicksand Slip.
nice.
You want to say it into the mic?
I have Quicksand Slip.
Oh shit! There you go. Wow, imagine like none of his voice. Yo, was George even in the room?
I was pulling away because I was coughing, so I was trying to be polite. There's no mute buttons, which I'm very used to.
Fuck the mute.
We're on a 7-second
We're
delay.
raw. Yeah.
Naughty words.
We got the
You
dumb
can edit.
button.
You can edit out my coughing.
We'll fix it in post.
I can't
I say it
imagine.
every week.
His phone's still uploading anyway. So yeah.
But that, there was Quicksand was Moondog. They were on a compilation. Then they did the Revelation 7-inch. Everything was like, oh, this is great. But Quicksand sounded great. It sounded bigger. You could still hear that they were a hardcore band. You could hear where Walter was coming from. There's like a little bit of melody in it, but not all those bands that were trying to like finally sing and like sound, like a different band. It had this like bass and drum lock with Alan Cage and Sergio that just was just had like a body to it, that was just, it just, everything just locked it, So to me, that like changed it. That was like the Sgt. Pepper.
That
of
was that
New York hardcore. to
that
me.
record influence. Like, man, like everyone's like, what the, like, I remember hearing Dine Alone for the first time,
Yeah.
like what, 92, 93. And I'm just like, it was, you hear that riff and I'm like, huh. I'm like, how do you play that? I'm like, I don't even understand. Like, and it wasn't like they were doing like thrash metal or anything technical, but it was just the groove of it and what he was doing with like, it was like like
There was like a
Game
groove,
changer,
which,
yeah.
is kind of a corny word, but there really was. And everything locked in. They got like signed to a major. There was songwriting involved, but it was just solid songs. Like, and it was one of those records like from beginning to end,
Yeah.
second to none.
even the instrumental, like,
Even the
instrumental.
Baphomet.
you know.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Right.
Number 2, Langan.
Number 2, this almost could have been my number 1, but the Dead Boys, Young, Loud, and Snotty
Okay.
from 77. Again, same way what I said about the Damned. I thought these guys were really good players for being a bunch of young, snotty punks.
Yeah.
But Cheetah Chrome, I thought Stiv was a great singer. Sonic Reducer, the opener on it, is so fucking New York
Still-
70s punk rock. Fucking, it's been covered, I
Just
think, by
Everyone.
band that
Yeah.
ever
Even
existed.
Saves the Day did it.
Pearl Jam does it.
Yeah.
I mean, fucking everybody does it. But Ain't Got Nothing to Do, What Love Is, Caught with the Meat in Your Mouth. It's got a great sense of humor to it, too. They didn't really do much after that. That was just lightning in a bottle. Perfect, great storm, great songs captured on that one record. It's one of the most important records in New York punk history, I think.
Yeah, people cite that all the time. Dead
Yeah.
Boys, Dead Boys, Dead Boys. So
It's a perfect record. If you haven't heard it, it's a must listen.
do it now.
Do it.
Pause.
Shut this show off.
Yeah, shut the show off. You could pause it and come back.
Yes.
Brian Parker will still be here. with
Yes.
number 2.
Falling asleep, but I did Cave-In Until Your Heart Stops.
Nice.
Oh.
I remember hearing a bootleg when they still used to have bootleg tapes before everything was, on the internet and everything. I was on tour in Florida, and the guy that we were staying with, I forget the fucking guy's name, but he was just like, yo, this band Cave-In. I was like, no, I know Cave-In. I fucking love that band. He goes, well, have you heard the new shit? And I'm like, no, man, the new shit ain't out yet. Oh, all right, man.
Come get
on.
in my
Yeah,
bed.
Get in my yeah. So he puts this
I'll
fucking
make you a deal.
he puts this tape on.
Let's
and
share
I,
headphones.
yeah. I think we crammed all 5 guys in the back of this fucking guy's car.
I bet you did.
Yeah. And
It's getting more interesting.
yeah, and I heard it. I was just like, holy fucking shit! Like,
Yeah.
this is what I want.
Yeah.
This is what I want us to sound like.
Yeah.
And that fucking album came out, and it was huge and sold fucking hundreds of thousands of copies.
Did it really?
Oh yeah, not hundreds of thousands, but
All right, yeah.
that definitely put Hydra Head Records, I think, on the map.
Yeah.
And put Cave-In on the map, and I mean, from that sound even to Jupiter, like Cave-In's the one band that I never got pissed at when they changed. Oh, they sound like Failure now. Like, cool.
They do.
I'll listen to them. Cool.
That's
I
Jupiter-
I never gave up on that band, even when they signed to a major label. Oh, what the fuck they're on? I think they were on like MCA or something, and they're touring with Foo Fighters and blah blah blah. Cool, I'll listen to it, and I did, and I loved it. So
Me too.
yeah,
Like Jupiter, Antenna.
yep,
Antenna's my favorite.
yeah,
I didn't really I wasn't too. It just wasn't my thing like the earlier stuff.
yeah.
But like, man, that once they kicked it up to the, like you said, like Failure, it was really
Yeah.
good comparison. Really, really loved it. Now that dude Steve does Mutoid Man.
Yep.
Which is like
Drummer Converge, yeah.
mind blowing.
Yep.
Like mind
Oh
blowing.
yeah.
Like,
For a 3-piece too.
for a 3-piece,
know?
like the shit that he's singing and
Yeah.
playing to, it's like very like almost prog
Yeah.
rock.
Because
type shit.
when I first saw Cave-In was at Deja One, and that's when he was just playing guitar and kind of doing like the singing parts, and then they had an actual like singer screamer guy, and then they booted him out, and then he took over full duties as the singer screamer guitarist, and I was like, this fucking guy is crazy, man.
He's one of the best musicians I've seen in my life.
Yeah.
He could do everything.
Yeah.
Just the playing, the singing, the screaming, full package.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to do number 2. My number 2 is a band that influenced everything that I've done musically forever, my whole life. Their debut record is everything that I've ever loved about music. Descendants, Milo Goes to College.
Nice.
The Descendants just chose melody, and their songwriting chops were
Yeah.
fucking insane. Like when you're like, oh, we're gonna play this song, and then you listen to like the bass lines, and then the drum patterns, and like the single, like the note picking that they do. It's like far beyond anything. Like, I mean, you could play them shitty if you want to cover them, but the actual like songs, like the way they play, just amazing. And that record, just, I mean, from Hope to Bikeage, it was the catchiest stuff that I've ever heard. It was just pure melody, and growing up, that's what I liked. I was just like a melody dude. Like if you had a song that I could, hum along to or sing along to, that was always what I was going to gravitate towards. So, number 2, Descendants, Milo Goes to College.
Good choice.
All right, so I'm going to fucking read. We got some lists here, so I'm going to go through this real quick.
Listener list.
Yeah, listener. I
Or at
like
least
that.
people we sent messages to
Yeah.
to give them. Maybe they don't listen.
I'm still waiting for that fucking guy from Ireland listening to send us the
Yeah.
list,
Here, Brian, here's your fucking stupid list for your show. I don't listen.
This is
to
from
it.
my mom. Now, this is Mike Malamo. So, number 5, he has Bad Religion Suffer. Number 4, 13 Songs. Number 3, something that I love, Drive Like J.U. Self-Titled. Number 2, Bloodlet, Eclectic. And number 1, Dead Guy, Work Ethic.
Ooh, good one.
There
All right.
you go.
Number 5, Paulie Wozniak. He has Indecision, Unorthodox. Number 4, Kill Your Idols. No Gimmicks Needed. Not debut, but first LP. Blah, blah. Number 3 is one that I have on my honorable mentions, which is Black Flag's Damaged. Number 2, Bad Brains. The ROIR Sessions. Number 1.
Cassette.
Oh, yeah, the cassette. And number 1, Circle Jerks Group Sex.
Nice.
All right, so Rick Jimenez, who's a guest, same as me. All right, so
Fucking Rick.
yeah, he has
show.
he has number 5. So is Malama, actually. I forgot to mention that. Number 5, Descendants, My Logos College. Number 4, Dead Kennedys, Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables. Number 3, The Adolescent Self-Titled. Number 2, TSOL, The Black EP.
Nice.
And number 1, Minor Threat, which I think are both EPs, but whatever. Yeah,
Some people don't know how to follow rules.
Yeah.
it's all right. He's got a lot of muscle.
It's a tough genre for that because
Yeah.
It is.
punk band, they just put out all kinds of shit.
Yeah.
Well, that was a cassette only and a 45.
Split
and that might have been a
7-inch.
7-inch, but
And
only
sometimes you don't remember
3
the
other
year. Was
bands
that
were on
first
it.
or second?
Then we got Vito.
Vito.
Oh, Vito.
Another good drummer.
Another great drummer. Number 5, he has Face to Face, Don't Turn Away. Fantastic. Bad Brains, self-titled. Number 3, Turning Point. It's Always Darkest Before the Dawn. Number 2, Cro-Mags, Age of Quarrel. And number 1, the self-titled Ramones record. Dan Turr.
Oh, fucking terrible. All Van Halen?
All Van
Anthrax.
Halen. He's got Anthrax, Stomp 414. Number 5, Shai Hulud. Hearts Once Nourished with Hope and Compassion. Number 4, Dead Guy, Fixation of a Coworker. Number 3, Buried Alive.
Oh.
Death
We
to
were
Your
just talking
Perfect
about that.
World. Death to Your Perfect World.
Dan Tur's actually going to Philly with me, so that was a
There he
nice
is.
little plug. So
Number 2, Poison the Well, Opposite of December.
that's not the first album, Dan Tur. You should know that.
Oh, shit.
Number 1, Misfits Walk
fired.
Among Us. And he writes, can't wait to get bashed on once again by myself. All right, and my last list, I have Chris Baltras. He has number 5, The Slits, Cut.
Nice.
Number 4, Devo. Are we not men? We are Devo. Number 3, Richard Hell and the Voidoids, Blank Generation. Number
one.
2, Minutemen, What Makes a
Nice.
Man Start Fires. And number 1, Ramones, self-titled.
Nice.
I just got one list. I got Rob Link. Number 5, Fast Break, Fast Cars, Fast Women. Number 4, Hatebreed, Satisfaction's Death Desire. Number 3, H2O, self-titled. Number 2, Silent Majority, Life of a Spectator. Number 1, Kid Dynamite, self-titled.
I got 4 guys here. I got Sean Powers. He said no particular order, so I'm just going to read off Bane. It all comes down to this. Avail, Satiate. Gorilla Biscuits, Start Today, which is killer. Madball, Set It Off. Warzone, Don't Forget the Struggle, Don't Forget the Streets.
Nice.
Another classic. Todd Reynolds,
Oh,
a regular contributor
Nice.
So, yeah.
to this feature. He's leaving out Black Flag and Minor Threats. It's too obvious.
Right.
He's always got a comment before his thing. Number 5, DRI, Dealing With It, which is killer. Before they did the crossover thing.
Of course.
4, Murphy's Law's First. 3, Crumbsuckers, Life of Dreams, awesome band. 2, Sick of It All, Blood, Sweat, and No Tears. Can't argue with that. Cro-Mags, Age of Quarrel, number 1. My man Brendan Henry had 5, Sex Pistols, Nevermind the Bollocks. 4, Misfits Beware, he put. So I believe that's not officially the first album.
It's all right.
Sorry, Brendan. 3, H2O. 2, Rancid, self-titled. Number 1, Ramones, self-titled.
Yeah.
And my friend Chris Thrash from Connecticut. 5, Madball's first album. 4, Hatebreed, Satisfaction is the Death of Desire. He said the original first was Under the Knife.
But that was like a comp. That was like a demo with 7-inch.
I'm
and
leaving it.
something else.
I'm looking at you while
Thanks,
I'm reading
pal.
it because I know
I appreciate
you know
that,
you
pal.
fucking Hatebreed.
Yeah.
3, Agnostic Front, Victim in Pain. 2, Suicidal, self-titled. 1, Sick of It All, Blood, Sweat, and No Tears. That's what I got.
Fantastic. All right, so it's time for number 1, and let's bring this nerd level to a climax here.
Oh shit!
Number 1, George Reynolds. What do you have for?
Agnostic Front, Victim in Pain.
There you go.
That was down near the end of someone's list.
Yes.
Down close to number 1.
Yes,
But it is like the blueprint of New York hardcore.
absolutely.
You know, it's
It's
I don't
hard
even
to
think it's
argue
30
that.
minutes. The first song. I was just thinking about this the other day. I'm like, I don't even think I know all the lyrics. I just been singing it like da, 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 da. It's a rhythm, and even there's that one song in there that's a little bit more like emotional, like With Time, and it's just a perfect record. That's like the blueprint of New York hardcore, I think.
Yeah. Like just synonymous, that name.
Not
When you hear
hardcore,
AF.
but like New York City hardcore,
Yeah.
fast
That's a
guitar,
statement
like
record.
leaning
Yeah.
on like heavier, and
It was
it's
the
pretty
blueprint
stigma.
for a lot of bands
Completely.
to follow.
Speaking of the watch, he just posted a picture of him doing BJJ with Roger.
Oh yeah,
I saw that.
Yeah.
Did he?
I was like, sure, why not?
yeah.
I mean,
it just.
What was he doing with him?
I guess he was like doing.
Not giving him a BJ. BJJ.
Oh,
yeah.
Zillion
Get your
jiu-jitsu.
mind out of the
It's
gutter.
I got the one headphone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay,
He's on enough album covers. He doesn't need any more favors. He doesn't need
I'm just thinking
BJJs.
like this guy finally got to meet the watch. Number one, Langan.
It's a cliche, but I have the Ramones self-titled.
Yeah.
All my shit is really old compared to you guys,
Yeah.
but I'm really old.
Yeah.
Listen, it was an album
Yeah.
that birthed 1,000 bands. They
Can't
took
argue.
it to England. They, all the guys that formed the Clash and the Pistol, everybody was in the audience that day. The chord progressions, it was a formula that people followed, and it's also got one of my favorite songs of all time by anybody is Today Your Love, Tomorrow the World.
Yep.
Obviously, I could do without hearing Blitzkrieg Bop again. We know it a million times. Just like I could never hear Stairway to Heaven again. There's certain songs. Iron Man, I'm good. You know what I mean? But as far as a whole album, it's what can
Yeah,
I
it's
say
great.
about it? I mean, it's one of the most important records ever made.
Pretty much.
know,
Yeah.
so-
Even the cover is just so like no frills.
It's so it's a perfect cover for them.
Yeah.
But I don't like to go with the obvious, but I didn't know I cannot go
Yeah,
anywhere else but
that's
that.
it.
Yep, that's it.
All right, Parker, number one.
Number one, VOD self-titled, a.k.a. the Green Album.
nice.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah, I had to keep it local for number one.
Yeah.
That album probably had just as much impact as the fucking like Black Album Metallica for me. I guess because it was probably like a band that I always kept on watching, and I was just like, holy shit, these fucking guys signed to like a major label. And I mean, Brendan's drumming, once again, going back to that, was unreal on it. I loved the production. And funny thing was, they were always playing those songs beforehand, but then kind of when that album got released, they're like, oh, what the fuck are these new fucking bullshit songs? And I was like, no, they've been playing them, just, guess you just haven't been listening close enough. So
But it was like, you think of like the way a record opens
Yeah.
sometimes like makes it classic or
Yep.
not. And when you hear that Into the Brink, and then when Tim hits Rise,
oh, yeah.
it's like
Yep.
that like turned my head.
Yep.
I was like, what the fuck?
Yep.
That's makes it a classic
Love
record
it.
for sure.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, my number one is obvious to me.
That'd be good.
Yeah. Better be good. I mean, I did want to go with the Clash, but I mean, I guess I had to rub it out for the Misfits, Walk Among Us.
Ah.
That's their debut record, and it reads like a greatest hits record. They are probably my favorite band. They're the only band that it's tattooed on my body. I can't think of another band that wrote songs that hit me more. When I first got Walk Among Us, like I'm just so I don't forget anything here. 20 Eyes,
Great opener.
I turned into a
Every
Martian.
song is
Yeah.
an anthem.
Yeah.
It's a fucking anthem.
Every song, like they just had the catchiest hooks, melodies, and the lyrics were just almost vile.
They were like the whole song structures were like 50 songs almost.
That's what it was.
and sped up,
Yeah.
raw, aggressively played, had the old sci-fi monster. It was like everything I loved.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But and one of the most identifiable voices on top
Absolutely.
of it.
Did you love it because of them or before them, and it all came together, like the sci-fi and the.
I can remember going to my friend's house. Like I remember everything like that afternoon practically. That band had such an impact on me. And hearing that album and stuff, and it was just realizing that it was encapsulating all that stuff that I liked. It just made perfect sense to me and was heavy, but so the hooks on it.
Hooks are huge. Like you hear a song, like you're basically singing one of the catchiest songs on the planet, Skulls, and then you're talking about hacking the heads of little girls and putting them on your wall. You're talking about peeling someone's fucking face off.
Right. And you're singing along like it's the,
Yeah.
you know,
Like it's fucking American Bandstand.
yeah. I mean, what a dynamic.
Yeah.
See,
I mean,
I didn't know. I like Misfits. I could never get into.
really.
I always saw it as more of like cartoonish,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and no idea Skulls was about that
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
till right now.
Yeah.
The more you know.
Finally, 2017, we're
Yeah.
breaking down Skulls. You know, it took a while. Everything. You know,
Yeah.
20 Eyes. Mommy, can I go out and kill tonight? Like,
Yeah.
ridiculous. They perfected the whoa woes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was the total.
But what about
yeah.
Bullet? The fact what Bullet is about.
Bullet's not on that record.
No, but I'm saying just in general. you
just
know?
everything.
Yeah.
Like if you listen to the song Bullet, it's about JFK getting shot, and
and that's
like,
where Texas is the reason got the name from.
Texas is the reason. And then at the end, he's talking
I
about
did not know
Yeah.
that.
yeah. Whoa, shit. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
dropping
Dude,
gems
I
on
didn't know.
this
Oh,
dude right
shit.
now.
Yeah.
I got a lot to learn.
But he's talking about like his cum is her life support, and the only way to get
Masturbate
it,
me.
masturbate
It's
me,
the suck or the fuck.
Yeah.
lick it from your palms. And you're singing this because it's the catchiest shit ever, but like the lyrics are just vile. Love it.
Yeah.
Angel fuck is about having sex with the Virgin Mary.
Die, die, my darling.
Yeah.
I was a real big Earth AD guy.
Great
That was
album.
great, yeah.
But
Heaviest album, probably.
I mean,
you know?
when you talk to the Misfits, like, you know, Desert Island, I got that Coffin box set in under
Absolutely.
my arm, and
Yeah.
I don't even have it's not a hard decision for me.
No.
I just grabbed that, and
Yeah.
that's the album I'm going to have the rest of my life,
Yeah,
and that's it. And the story. That's Misfits are my favorite band of all time.
mine
you know?
too.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, look at this.
yeah.
Yeah, I got one here, too.
Yeah.
Definitely one we
Shit,
can
I
agree
even-
on,
I
you
even
know?
got the Danzig.
Nice.
Oh, speaking
followed
of,
up.
he just released a new record today. I didn't listen to it.
Yeah. I didn't hear the whole thing. I heard 2 songs.
The
And,
first song is kind of terrible because he can't sing.
but his vocal is really
Fried.
up front
Yeah.
in the mix. What I heard, I was like, "Eee."
It sounded like you're sitting in the room with him and you could barely hear the music, but you could hear him singing terribly.
Yeah, like he's like, come in my living room a second. I
Yeah.
wanna hear-" And
Yeah.
he sets like the music real low in the
Puts-
background, sits right next to you on the couch, and serenades.
You're like,
you.
sing that song for me. Turn the music way down. Turn the vocal way
Can you
up.
turn that lower?
Let's see what
Actually,
you got.
You know, but how do you tell someone like that to stop making records? You can't. They just make records.
I want him
Yeah.
to make records forever,
Yeah.
whether they're good or bad. He's a goddamn national treasure. All right?
That's like,
He's
I
a
never-
little.
I always saw it as
national
like
treasure.
cartoony. I guess I think I didn't pay attention, and then when Danzig started doing his
Yeah.
thing, I paid attention.
Yeah.
It
and then
is
maybe it was easy to
cartoony.
like looking at him
Mm.
was like just easy to like discount.
It is very
If you start
cartoony, and I
with
think
Danzig
that's the
and move
appeal
backwards.
to it. I think Danzig, he was trying to take himself a little more
Well, that's
seriously.
what it was. I think it was just
Right.
basically like he was trying to get away from that, image. So Danzig was just super dark, and they were all like,
But they had like great players too, that band.
listen, the first
Yeah.
4 records
They
are
always
fucking awesome.
did.
Yeah.
You know, Chuck Biscuit,
Yeah.
Zero Yvonne still played
John
bass. Who was in
Christ.
Yeah.
Sam Hain, John Christ, and I mean, even now he's got Tommy Victor from Prongs playing guitar for him.
Yeah.
The whole lot of people that have come through that.
Gotta
you
be
know,
pushing
And
60
Sam
now.
Hain, I love Sam Hain too.
Yeah.
It's really, I'm just, he'll make some shit. He will. But I'll deal with it, and I'll wait for the next record. You know? Death Red Sabbath, that album he made
Yeah.
was really good. You know, so it's never, you never know what you're gonna get. But I'll always be there to hear.
I'll
what he
always hit
plays.
play. There's certain bands that I'll always hit play on.
I
I
love
mean,
that
obviously,
voice.
we talk Jane's Addiction.
Yeah.
Always.
I'm always gonna be interested in what they do, whether I'm in love with it, I don't like it as much as something else. When any of those Jane's Addiction, certain bands come out with something, especially the bands I came up with, I'm always going to be interested.
Jello Biafra too. I always check out Like,
Yeah.
it's his bands or spoken word. I'm
The
like,
stuff he does with the Melvins, I love. Guantanamo School of
Yeah.
Medicine, all that stuff, all his projects.
I don't always love it, but I'm like,
No, but I want to
just
hear it. I
he's-
want to hear it.
gonna be bizarre and interesting, so it'll keep my attention.
Yeah. He's a character, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
know?
because as like fans, or even as like musicians, like, you know, I'll just always want to keep making music. But I know some people kind of tune out. But I think those people never really gave a shit about music anyway.
Right.
You know, some people just stopped at like 93 and then I'm like, all right, I'm good.
Yeah.
Right.
The people
Like-
that say there's no good shit being made today.
Yeah.
There's nothing
Like,
worse than like
I
we all
can't
know
stand
Alice
that
in
shit.
Chains and Soundgarden were great,
Yeah.
Nirvana, whatever. But it's like you can't like be like, oh, the kids today,
No.
they don't know. It's like, dude, if you put on a Gorilla Biscuits record, it's not technically good.
Right.
You were 15. It was the emotion behind
It's
it.
raw
Like, youth
to
of
you
today is
then.
not a technically, you know. So if you compare it to some band that's,
Sure.
you know, just doing a record today, it's like these kids are in the basement having their time in their lives. You're not supposed to like it.
No.
No.
You're not
Your
supposed
parents
to.
thought your
Yeah.
music sucked, and their parents thought their music sucked, and stuff like that. But there's good shit out there. Like, I fell out of love with hip hop for a long time till you started giving me new stuff, and it's like it's out there.
It's
I just
out there.
had to look for it a little harder.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? But I needed somebody to point me in the right direction. Now I'm like, oh, okay, that guy, this guy, that guy. It's there.
Yeah.
You just have to be willing. Older people might not be willing to put the effort in to find it, but maybe they're just not. Music's not as important to them as it is to me. To look for that stuff that's still being made,
And it's
that's
like
good.
super important. Like I just every year, so many new records come out, and now it's just easier it's just easier. It's easier
I find
to
it's
find.
almost harder to like keep up with so much shit.
It
It's
is.
like,
There's
'cause I
too much
Spotify,
stuff.
I'm like, oh my god, there's so much.
But
shit I
it's
wanna
also
hear.
like there's no question
Yeah.
that there's like kids in a basement somewhere creating something that
Mm-hmm.
we don't know about.
Yeah.
Right.
So we could say like, oh, it was, you know, they don't know, or there's so much better back in the day. It's like it's not. It doesn't have nothing to do with us.
Mm-hmm.
Like unless we want to be involved, but they're doing stuff that is going to sound like crazy to our ears. You know, just the way Victim in Pain did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just the way
It
you
makes
know.
sense to them, though.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, nobody knew what we were listening to. We were in our own bubbles, and we thought it was great. So they're doing that. You can't shit on that and be like, oh, that's just garbage. Or maybe we should so that they'll work harder or something. But
Yeah.
like, that's important. Like, there's no question in my mind. There's amazing shit going on right now that I have no idea about.
I think that the trend, though, and it's just generally speaking, but like as far as what it goes mainstream is really there's a lot of more vile shit, I feel like, and you have to look way below the surface to find some other stuff where I don't know. There was a day when, you know, Metallica, a band I love, was selling. They were like the biggest band in the world and stuff, and Nirvana, Soundgarden, all these bands were having commercial success as well as like some
Yeah.
musical cred and stuff, that they were popular and it was really good shit. I find the divide between like the good stuff that I find now and what is just broadening. Like the divide is bigger.
Technology
Yeah.
makes it where I could you know, just sit there and make something on my phone and upload it in 2 seconds.
Right.
So it was harder to basically round up some money to go into a fucking real studio because that's the only option you had. And by then people will be like, your fucking shit sucks. You should not be spending money. Or by then, like, your passion will burn out where it's like, oh, yeah, maybe I'm not going to raise the money to go into the studio. My parents aren't going to pay for it. But now it's like I could buy an iPad and create something on GarageBand and upload it. So that's what you're digging through.
Yeah.
You're digging through more of that stuff. Not saying that some of that stuff isn't great. There's a kid somewhere in the Midwest somewhere making some song on GarageBand that's probably the best song I've never heard.
Right.
But there's also 100 other of those kids making the worst shit ever.
Yeah.
So it's easy to find that, but you just have to swim a long fucking way. You know,
Maybe that's a part of the problem is that they can make it available so quick, and some of the bands that get in the van and take all that time to gel as a band or something like that, I might hone a lot of the pretenders out. You know what I mean? Where people get instant fame nowadays. They put shit on YouTube. Maybe they're not ready yet for, you know.
Because all you need are basically 1, 2, 3 chords, and you'll come up with a melody, and it'll hit everyone's head, and be like, oh, this is catchy. And like a catchy melody is just that. You know, like a McNugget tastes good doesn't mean it's good for you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know where that shit comes from, but you could hum something ridiculously, and it'll hit the U.S., it'll hit the world, and everybody will be singing it.
Right.
You know, because it's just a melody.
Earworm.
Yeah, it's just a melody. Yeah. You know, so it doesn't mean that you're gonna have a long career. It's just like, you knocked that out of the park on this one. So
All I know is I want a chicken McNugget right now.
all right, cool. What's our next guest?
My buddy Mark Schoenbach, and he does this company called Sadist Art Design. He was a former artist for Fangoria, and he's done shirts for Fright Rags.
Cool.
And should be a good horror guest.
So yeah, we're gonna talk. We're gonna talk some shit.
Yeah,
Is he bringing shirts for us too?
possibly. I haven't.
Dan Terra set a precedent.
I haven't schmoozed him yet. So, but he wanted to do worst to best Deftones too. So yeah, so we'll be doing that.
Oh, I'm excited for
Yeah,
this.
and he's got 2 top 5s that he's going back and forth on. So we haven't decided that yet. So
Can we,
Okay.
Do
Yeah.
we know what those are? We're going to say that if it's
A is either top 5 horror sequels, which is a good one, or top 5 horror babes.
Okay.
Which is another good one.
Lisa Zane, number 1. That's
Bam.
it. I don't even have to do it.
With a
anymore.
bullet.
With my bullet. All right, cool. So thanks, George,
Yeah,
for
man.
basically
Really appreciate it.
indulging
Thanks,
us
guys.
and listening
Yeah,
to
fantastic.
my stupid questions. And these guys had way better things to say.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for asking questions. This was fun.
Thank
Alright,
you,
cool.
George.
All right, hopefully the Coppola was delicious.
I gotta say that was a good pick.
That's
That's
our
it.
sponsor.
That's it. Frankie.
That's our sponsor.
It was better
Sponsored
than
by-
Godfather 3 at least.
Francis Coppola Diamond Collection.
Nice.
All right, so we're gonna upload some of these flyers.
Cool.
Oh, cool.
Gee, I mean, why not, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, cool. Until next time. See you guys.
Later.
All right.
Hey.